Prologue. The Poisoned Glass. The first thing you notice about the Vigneto Club after midnight isn't the sound, but the silence underneath it. The bass was a given, a physical presence that vibrated through the soles of expensive shoes and rattled champagne flutes on marble tables. The laughter came in waves, performative and sharp. The clink of crystal, the murmur of deals disguised as conversation, the rustle of designer fabric as bodies moved through space like chess pieces. That was the surface. But beneath it all, in the spaces between the notes, was a watchful, calculating quiet. It was the silence of money counting itself, of power measuring power, of secrets exchanged in glances that never lingered too long. I moved through it all like a ghost. White shirt starched until it could cut. Black vest that felt like armor over my racing heart. A bow tie knotted so tight it might as well have been a collar. My name tag read Era Clark, and for the last 3 years, this velvet-draped cage had been my entire world. I poured 18-year-old scotch for men who smiled with their mouths while their eyes calculated how much your life was worth. I served champagne to women whose diamonds were as cold and sharp as their laughter. I was invisible by design. A pair of hands that delivered drinks and disappeared before anyone could remember my face. Invisibility was survival. My father had taught me that before he died. Don't be seen, Era. Don't be remembered. Ghosts don't get killed. Tonight the silence felt different. Heavier, like the air before a storm breaks. It started the moment he walked in. The crowd didn't need to be told to move. They simply did. Bodies parting like water around a shark. Lorenzo Volkov. The wolf. I didn't need the hushed whispers or the way conversations died mid-sentence to know who he was. Everyone in this city knew. His reputation was a shadow that stretched across every dark corner, every backroom deal, every body that washed up in the river with cement shoes and no witnesses. He was taller than I expected. Built with the solid, immovable grace of a man who'd never needed to prove his strength because everyone already understood it. Dark hair silvered at the temples. Distinguished, not old. A suit that probably cost more than I'd make in a year. Tailored to predatory perfection. But it was his eyes that made my breath catch. Chilling pale gray, like winter sky moments before it decides to kill you with cold. They scanned the room with the bored ownership of a king surveying his kingdom. And for one heart-stopping second they found me. I dropped my gaze immediately, my pulse hammering against my ribs like it was trying to escape. I focused on polishing an already spotless glass, the routine motion a desperate anchor to normalcy. Don't look up. Don't attract attention. Be the ghost. His entourage settled into the reserved corner booth, a nest of black suits and harder eyes. But Volkov didn't sit. He detached himself from the group with the fluid certainty of a predator who knows no one will challenge him, and walked toward the bar. Heard me. Each footstep on the polished marble floor felt like a countdown. The space around me emptied as other patrons suddenly found urgent reasons to be elsewhere. Even Marco, the assistant manager who usually hovered around the bar with his oily smile and wandering hands, had vanished. I was alone. Ground zero for whatever was about to happen. Vodka. His voice bypassed my ears and vibrated straight into my bones. Accentless, precise, utterly devoid of warmth. Belvedere if you have it. Neat. I nodded, not trusting my voice. I turned, reaching for the distinctive bottle on the top shelf. My hands, usually so steady after 3 years of this work, trembled slightly. I could feel his gaze on my back like a physical weight, assessing, cataloging, seeing me in a way I hadn't been seen in years. As I poured the crystalline liquid into a heavy crystal tumbler, movement in my peripheral vision made me pause. Marco appeared beside Volkov like a conjured demon. His smile too wide, too eager. He'd been nowhere, and now he was everywhere. Sliding onto the stool next to the wolf with the desperate confidence of a man making a play he couldn't afford to lose. Lorenzo, Marco said. His voice too loud in the sudden quiet. A pleasure as always. Please allow me to get that for you. Before I could react, Marco reached across the bar and took the glass I'd just poured. He set it in front of Volkov with a flourish that made my stomach turn. Then he produced a small, unlabeled bottle from his inner jacket pocket. "A gift," Marco said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper that I was clearly meant to overhear. "From the new shipment. The purest you'll ever taste. Special blend just for you." He unscrewed the cap with theatrical care and tipped a single clear drop into the vodka. It vanished without a trace, like it had never existed. My breath caught. Every instinct I possessed, every lesson learned from a childhood spent watching my father navigate this same world, screamed in unison. "This is wrong. This is a hit." Marco's posture was too eager, pupils dilated with adrenaline or drugs or both. The way he'd intercepted the drink I'd poured, the secretive bottle from his pocket, the performance of generosity masking something darker. I'd seen this script before. Different bar, different city. 6 years ago when my father had still been alive to point out the tells. Watch the hands, Era. Watch the eyes. When someone's lying they can't control both. Marco's hands were shaking. His eyes were too bright, fever bright, fixed on Volkov's face with an intensity that had nothing to do with respect and everything to do with anticipation. He was waiting to watch the wolf die. Volkov stared at the glass, his expression unreadable. His fingers moved toward it with unhurried grace, like he had all the time in the world. Time didn't slow down. Shattered. My father's face flashed in my mind. His voice an echo from a grave I visited every year on the anniversary of his accident. "Don't ever get involved, Era. You see something, you look the other way. You survive by not being seen." But looking the other way was what had gotten him killed. My hand moved before my brain could catch up. I grabbed a pristine cocktail napkin and the pen I kept in my vest pocket for taking orders. 5 words, scrawled in handwriting that shook with more than fear. "Don't drink it. Leave now." I slid the napkin across the polished wood. It came to a stop right beside the poisoned glass, stark white against dark mahogany. Then I turned away, busying myself with the sink, pretending to wash glasses that didn't need washing. My entire body braced for the explosion, shouting, violence, the wet crack of a gunshot. The silence behind me stretched taut and deadly. I could feel his gaze shift from the napkin to me. Heard the soft rustle of paper as he picked it up. 1 second passed. The bass from the club's sound system pounded in my temples like a second heartbeat. Had he read it? Would he listen? Would he kill me for interfering? Then a hand shot out. Not to take the glass. Not to crumple the napkin. His fingers, strong, impossibly warm, wrapped around my wrist and pinned it to the bar. The grip wasn't brutal, but it was absolute. Unbreakable. A promise of power barely restrained. I gasped, my head snapping up to meet those winter-gray eyes. There was no anger there. No surprise. Just a deep, unnerving intensity, as if he were seeing me, truly seeing me for the first time. As if he were memorizing every detail of my face, cataloging it for purposes I couldn't begin to imagine. He leaned in close. His voice a whisper meant only for me, the scent of cedar and cold night air washing over me. "Why?" he murmured, his thumb pressing against the frantic pulse in my wrist. "Would I do that, little ghost?" The world narrowed to that single point of contact. His hand on my wrist, his eyes boring into mine. Marco's confused expression in my peripheral vision, the eager anticipation curdling into panic. The poisoned glass sitting between us like a loaded gun. I had broken every rule of survival. I had made myself visible. I had saved the life of the most dangerous man in the city. And as Lorenzo Volkov studied my face with that terrible, focused intensity, I knew with bone-deep certainty that my life of invisibility was over. The wolf had seen his ghost. And he wasn't going to let me disappear again. Chapter 1. The Velvet Cage. I woke to sunlight I didn't recognize. Not the anemic gray that struggled through my apartment's single window, filtered through years of grime and the shadow of the building next door. This was pure, unobstructed light, the kind that only existed high above the pollution, above the noise, above the lives of people like me. For a disoriented moment, I thought I was dead. Then the memories crashed back like a wave I couldn't outswim. The napkin. The wolf's hand on my wrist. His voice, little ghost. Spoken like he was naming something he intended to keep. And then, darkness. Needle. Strong arms carrying me as my legs gave out. The world tilting sideways as someone, Volkov? One of his men. Lifted me like I weighed nothing. They drugged me. Panic seized my chest. I sat up too fast and the room spun. Expensive sheets, Egyptian cotton, probably 1,000 thread count, slid off my body. I was still wearing last night's clothes, minus my shoes and vest. My white shirt was wrinkled, smelling of sweat and fear and something else. His cologne. Cedar and something darker. The bedroom was enormous. Minimalist in that way that screamed money. A king-sized bed with a leather headboard, a single piece of abstract art on the wall that was probably worth more than my yearly salary, floor-to-ceiling windows offering a view that stole what was left of my breath. Chicago stretched out below me like a map of everywhere I'd never belong. The lake. The skyline. Buildings I'd only ever seen from street level, never imagining I'd look down on them like a bird. Or a prisoner in a tower. My bag. The worn canvas messenger bag that held everything that mattered, sat on a chair by the door. I lunged for it, my legs unsteady, checking the contents with shaking hands. Wallet. Phone. The photo of my father I kept hidden in the inner pocket, creased from being touched too many times. Oh there. I grabbed my phone. No signal. Not weak, completely blocked. I tried calling out anyway. Nothing. Not even an emergency line. Course. I tried the door, expecting it to be locked. It wasn't. That surprised me until I stepped into the hallway and understood. This wasn't a room with a locked door. This was a gilded cage with invisible bars. Where would I go? We were so high up that jumping would be suicide. The elevator would require a keycard I didn't have. And even if I made it to the street, he would find me. Men like Lorenzo Volkov always found what they were looking for. The hallway led to an open-concept living space that belonged in an architectural magazine. Polished concrete floors. Low-slung leather furniture in shades of charcoal and black. Floor-to-ceiling windows on two sides, making the space feel like it was floating above the city. Abstract art on stark white walls. Violent slashes of red and black that looked like controlled rage frozen in time. And there, standing at those impossible windows with his back to me, was the wolf himself. He'd changed from last night's suit. Now he wore dark slacks and a black cashmere sweater that emphasized the breadth of his shoulders, the controlled power in his frame. His hair was damp like he'd showered recently. In the morning light, the silver at his temples was more pronounced, adding a distinguished edge to features that would have been brutal without it. He didn't turn, but he spoke. "There's coffee. Breakfast if you're hungry." His voice was different from last night. Still commanding but without the lethal edge. Almost domestic. It was more unsettling than if he'd been pointing a gun at me. "You drugged me." My voice came out steadier than I felt. "You kidnapped me. I protected you." He turned then, and those gray eyes pinned me in place. "The moment you interfered last night, you became a target. Marco's employers. Whoever hired him to poison me, they saw you. They know you warned me. They'll come for you to tie up loose ends. So you thought drugging me and bringing me here without consent was the solution? Would you have come willingly? No. Then I made the choice for you. You're welcome." He moved toward a dining table I hadn't noticed. Sleek black glass set for two. A carafe of coffee steamed beside covered dishes. "Sit. Then we'll talk about what happens next." "What happens next is you let me go home." A smile ghosted across his lips. Not warm. Not kind. Just amused, like I'd said something charmingly naive. "You don't have a home anymore. I had your apartment cleared out this morning. Your landlord believes you left suddenly for a family emergency. Your belongings are in storage until we determine what's safe to keep." The floor dropped out from under me. You had no right. I had every right. You saved my life. That makes you my responsibility. My asset. My. He paused as if searching for the right word. My guest. For as long as it takes to neutralize the threat. I'm not your guest. Guests can leave. Then consider yourself under protective custody. Is that better? He pulled out a chair, the gesture almost gentlemanly. Please, Miss Clark. You must be hungry. And we have much to discuss. I didn't want to sit. Didn't want to accept anything from this man. Not food, not protection, not the fiction that I had any choice in what happened next. But my body betrayed me. I was starving. The coffee smelled like heaven. And standing here arguing while my legs shook from whatever drug they'd given me wasn't going to change my situation. He sat across from me, watching as I poured coffee with hands that only shook a little. Black, no sugar. The way my father used to drink it. Tell me about last night, he said. How did you know? Know what? That the vodka was poisoned. That Marco was trying to kill me. He leaned back, utterly relaxed. My own security missed it. My men, trained to spot threats, saw nothing unusual. But you, a bartender, you saw it immediately. How? I took a sip of coffee, buying time. How much should I tell him? How much did he already know? Marco was acting wrong, I said carefully. His body language. He was too eager, too focused on you. His pupils were dilated. His hands were shaking. And the bottle. Who carries a special bottle of vodka in their pocket to a club that has a fully stocked bar? It didn't make sense unless he needed to control exactly what went into your drink. Volkov's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Interest. Respect, maybe. You notice things. Details most people miss. I've been bartending for 3 years. You learn to read people. When they're lying, when they're nervous, when they're about to do something stupid. And you thought Marco was about to do something stupid. I thought he was about to commit murder and probably get himself killed in the process. I was right about both, wasn't I? A muscle ticked in Volkov's jaw. Marco's body was found in his apartment this morning. Parent suicide. Gunshot to the head. Note confessing to embezzlement and personal troubles. The coffee turned to acid in my stomach. You killed him. No. I didn't need to. The people who hired him cleaned up their mess. He leaned forward slightly. That's how this world works, Miss Clark. Marco was dead the moment he accepted that contract, whether you warned me or not. The only question was when. You didn't save him. You only postponed the inevitable. But you know who hired him. I have suspicions. Enemies, rivals, ambitious underlings who think it's time for new leadership. The list is long. His gaze never left my face. Which is why you're here. You saw something my own people missed. You have skills I can use. Observational abilities. Analytical thinking. You're going to help me find out who ordered the hit. I'm not helping you do anything. I don't work for criminals. You've been working in a club that launders money for half the organized crime in Chicago. Your boss, the charming Mr. Castellano who owns the Vigneto, runs one of the largest drug distribution networks in the Midwest. Every drink you've poured for the last 3 years has been in service of criminal enterprise. His smile was sharp. So let's not pretend you have moral high ground here. The words hit like a slap because they were true. I'd known on some level what the Vigneto really was. Known and chosen not to look too closely because I needed the job, needed the money, needed the invisibility it provided. I didn't have a choice, I said quietly. Now you do. Help me, or I'll put you on a plane to somewhere far away with a new identity and enough money to start over. You'll be safe. You'll be invisible again. You'll also be alone, running for the rest of your life, never knowing if today's the day someone figures out who you really are and finishes what Marco started. That's not a choice. That's a threat disguised as options. Welcome to my world. He stood, walking to a sideboard where he poured himself something amber from a crystal decanter. Scotch at 9 in the morning. You have 24 hours to decide. Stay and help me under my protection, with your skills valued and compensated. Or run and spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder. Your choice, Miss Clark." He walked away, disappearing down a hallway, leaving me alone with cold coffee and impossible decisions. I spent the day exploring my prison. The penthouse was vast, easily 4,000 square feet. Beyond the main living area, I found a state-of-the-art kitchen that looked like it had never been used, a formal dining room that could seat 12, a gym with equipment that probably cost more than a car, and finally a library. The library stopped me in my tracks. It was 2 stories tall, accessed by a wrought iron spiral staircase that looked like it belonged in a European castle. The walls were lined floor to ceiling with books. Real books, their spines worn with use, not decorator pieces chosen for color. I ran my fingers along them as I walked, reading titles. Philosophy, history, poetry in multiple languages, Italian, Russian, French, English. Dostoevsky, Rilke, Mu. These weren't the books of a mindless thug. These were the books of someone who thought deeply about darkness, who sought to understand it through the words of others who'd stared into the abyss. It was the most human thing I'd seen in the entire penthouse. On the second level, tucked into a reading nook, I found a leather armchair that had molded itself to someone's body through years of use. Small desk. And on that desk, as if waiting for me, a slim volume bound in aged leather. Picked it up. Italian sonnets. The spine cracked with familiarity. This book had been opened many times, always to the same pages. I let it fall open naturally. One poem was marked in faint pencil, the margins filled with annotations in handwriting I didn't recognize. Feminine, flowing. Not Volkov's. L'amor mio è come febbre, bramando ancora. My love is like a fever, longing still. I read the full verse, my Italian rusty but serviceable. My love is like a fever, longing still for that which longer nurseth the disease, feeding on that which doth preserve the ill, the uncertain sickly appetite to please. It was about destructive love. Obsessive love. Love that consumed rather than healed. Someone had written in the margin, in that same feminine hand, "Don't become your father. Don't let love make you sick." My mother's handwriting. I spun around. Volkov stood at the top of the spiral staircase, watching me with an unreadable expression. "She left when I was 12, he continued, moving into the room with that predatory grace. "Took my younger sister and disappeared in the middle of the night. My father hunted for her for years, but she was smarter than he gave her credit for. She knew how to become invisible." His eyes found mine. "Like you. Did you ever find her?" "No. I stopped looking after my father died. I realized she was probably happier not being found. Happier not having to see what I'd become." He gestured to the book in my hands. "She left that behind. It's one of the few things of hers I still have." I looked down at the marked poem, understanding it differently now. She was warning you. She was trying to save me. It didn't work. He moved closer, close enough that I could smell that cedar scent again, see the faint scars on his hands. "But I keep the book as a reminder that people can escape, that sometimes the strongest choice you can make is to run." "Is that what you want me to do? Run?" "I want you to choose. Really choose, with full understanding of what each option costs." He took the book from my hands, his fingers brushing mine. "Stay, and you'll see things that will change you. You'll be complicit in violence, in decisions that haunt you. You'll lose your innocence if you have any left. But you'll be protected. You'll matter. You'll be seen. And if I run, you'll be safe, and invisible, and alone." He set the book back on the desk. "Your father understood that choice, didn't he? He chose visibility, chose to matter. And it got him killed." My blood went cold. "How do you know about my father?" "I know everything about you, Era Clark. Born in Seattle, moved to Chicago 6 years ago after your father died in a car accident that wasn't an accident. Changed your name from Era Morrison to Era Clark. Took a job at the Vigneto specifically because it was owned by your father's old associates, the same people who had him killed. His eyes were sharp, assessing. You're not hiding from your past. You're investigating it. Looking for proof. Looking for justice. I couldn't breathe. He knew. He knew everything. Does Castellano know who I am? Managed. No. If he did, you'd already be dead. You were very careful. Changed your appearance, your name, your entire identity. You became invisible. He tilted his head. But you're not investigating Castellano, are you? He's just the owner. You're looking for someone else. Someone connected to your father's death who you think still works at the club. My silence was answer enough. Help me, Volkov said quietly. Help me find out who tried to kill me, and I'll help you find out who killed your father. My resources, my contacts, my access. All of it at your disposal. That's the real choice, Era. Not safety versus danger. Justice versus invisibility. Why would you help me? What do you get out of it? Your skills. Your eyes. Your ability to see patterns others miss. He smiled, and it was almost genuine. And maybe, if we're both lucky, we find out that the person who killed your father and the person who tried to kill me are connected. Maybe we solve both mysteries at once. And if they're not connected, then after this is done, after we've both gotten what we need, you walk away. New identity, new life, enough money to disappear properly this time. I'll even give you the files on your father's case. Everything I can find. No strings attached. I wanted to say no. Wanted to throw the offer back in his face and demand he let me go. But he was right about one thing. I hadn't come to Chicago to hide. Come to investigate. To find proof that my father's death wasn't an accident. To make someone pay. And now the wolf was offering me the tools to do exactly that. How do I know you won't just kill me when I'm no longer useful? You don't. You have to trust that I'm a man of my word. He held out his hand. But I'll give you this. I've never lied to someone who saved my life. Call it honor, call it superstition, call it whatever you want. But if we make a deal, I'll keep it. I stared at his outstretched hand. At the scars on his knuckles. At the strength in those fingers that had wrapped around my wrist last night with such absolute control. This was the moment. The point of no return. My father's voice whispered in my memory. Don't be seen, Era. Ghosts don't get killed. But ghosts don't get justice either. I took his hand. His grip was firm, warm, absolute. He held my hand a moment longer than necessary. His thumb brushing across my knuckles in a gesture that could have been reassurance or possession. Welcome to the game, little ghost, he said softly. Try not to get killed before you get your answers. He released my hand and walked away, leaving me alone in his mother's library with her book of fevered love poetry. I looked down at my hand, at the place where his thumb had pressed against my skin. The wolf had called me his ghost. But I was starting to wonder who was really haunting whom. Chapter 2. The Wolf's Shadow. The real work began at midnight. I'd spent the rest of the day in a strange limbo, given free rein of the penthouse but shadowed by a silent giant named Kale who appeared whenever I moved between rooms. He never spoke, just watched with the dead-eyed patience of a man who'd done worse things than babysitting reluctant guests. Lorenzo, I couldn't think of him as Volkov anymore. Not after he'd held my hand and called me little ghost. Had disappeared after our conversation in the library. Business, Kale had grunted when I asked. Always business. But at midnight Lorenzo returned. Get dressed, he said, appearing in the doorway of the guest room where I'd been pretending to sleep. Something suitable for blending in. Dark colors. Comfortable shoes. Where are we going? To see a dead man's apartment. Marco's place hasn't been processed yet. The police are calling it suicide, so they're not in a hurry. We have a window to search it before his employers clean out anything useful. That's breaking and entering. Yes, it is. He smiled, and it was all wolf. You wanted to help investigate. This is what investigation looks like in my world. Are you coming, or should I leave you here with Kale? I got dressed. 20 minutes later, we were in the back of a black SUV. Cale driving, the city sliding past the tinted windows like a film reel of other people's lives. Lorenzo sat beside me, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body, smell that cedar scent that was becoming dangerously familiar. Marco lived in River North, Lorenzo said, his voice low. Expensive neighborhood, expensive building. More expensive than an assistant manager's salary should afford. That was the first red flag. 6 months ago he suddenly had money. New car, new apartment, designer suits. When I asked him about it, he said he'd had a good year in the stock market. You didn't believe him. I don't believe in luck. Only in payments and debts. He glanced at me. Your father, he worked for Castellano too, didn't he? Before his death. The question caught me off guard. How did you? I told you. I know everything about you. His eyes were steady on mine. Michael Morrison. He ran logistics for Castellano's import-export operations. Legitimate shipping, mostly, with just enough illegal product mixed in to be profitable. Smart man. Careful. Until he wasn't. He tried to get out, I said quietly. He told me he was done. That we were going to leave Chicago, start over somewhere clean. He had money saved, a plan. And then his car went off a bridge in the middle of the night. Single vehicle accident. No witnesses. Police ruled it driver error. Possibly fell asleep at the wheel. Lorenzo's voice was flat, reciting facts. But the brake lines had been cut. Amateur job but effective. Your father knew he was in danger. He'd made copies of files, evidence of Castellano's operations. He was going to use them as insurance, leverage to let him walk away clean. My throat tightened. How do you know all this? Because I was the one he approached for help. 3 days before he died, your father came to me. Said he wanted to make a deal. His files in exchange for protection. He wanted out of Castellano's organization and into mine, where he thought he'd be safer. Lorenzo's jaw tightened. I told him I'd think about it. That I needed to verify his information first. Before I could, he was dead. The world tilted. You could have saved him. Maybe. Or maybe approaching me is what got him killed. Maybe Castellano had someone watching him. Someone who reported back that Michael Morrison was talking to the competition. He looked at me directly. I don't know if I could have saved your father, Era. But I've wondered about it for 6 years. Every time I drive past that bridge, I wonder if I'd said yes immediately, would he still be alive? Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve the truth. And because if we're going to work together, you need to know exactly who I am. I'm not a hero. I'm not going to save you out of the goodness of my heart. I have my own interests, my own agenda. But I keep my word. Your father asked for help and I hesitated. I won't make that mistake with you. The SUV pulled up to a sleek high-rise in River North. Cale killed the engine but didn't move to get out. Cameras? Lorenzo asked. Looped. You've got 20 minutes. Lorenzo nodded and turned to me. Stay close. Touch nothing without gloves. If anyone asks, you're my attorney's paralegal. Here to document the scene for our insurance claim. Understood. What insurance claim? The one I'm inventing right now. Just follow my lead. We entered through a service entrance, Cale having already disabled the alarm. The building was the kind of expensive that whispered rather than shouted. Understated elegance, the scent of money in the air-conditioned coolness. Marco's apartment was on the 14th floor. Lorenzo produced a key from his pocket. Stolen or copied, I didn't ask, and we slipped inside. The apartment was chaos. Not the chaos of violence or struggle. The chaos of a man who'd been living on the edge for too long. Empty bottles lined the kitchen counter. Takeout containers spilled from an overflowing trash can. The living room looked like someone had been searching for something. Drawers pulled open, cushions askew, papers scattered across the coffee table. His employers already searched, Lorenzo said, moving through the space with practiced efficiency. But they were looking for physical evidence. Documents, drives, anything that could connect them to the hit. They wouldn't have been looking for patterns. What kind of patterns? The kind you see. He gestured around the room. Look, really look. Tell me what you notice. I forced myself to focus, to see the apartment the way I saw customers at the bar, reading the tells, the inconsistencies, the details that didn't quite fit. The bottles on the counter were expensive vodka. But the glasses in the sink were cheap, mismatched. The furniture was new, still had tags on some pieces. But the artwork on the walls was generic hotel prints, the kind you bought in bulk. The bedroom visible through an open door had expensive suits hanging in the closet, but the bed was unmade, sheets that hadn't been changed in weeks. He was spending money fast, I said slowly. The furniture, the suits, the alcohol. He was trying to look wealthy. But he didn't care about comfort. Didn't care about making this place a home. He was staging a set, not living a life. Good. What else? I moved to the coffee table, studying the scattered papers without touching them. Bills mostly. Credit card statements. He was in debt, I said, picking up a statement with my gloved hand. Look at this. $50,000 on this card alone. All spent in the last 3 months. And these? I pointed to collection notices. Medical bills. Someone was sick. Someone he was paying for. Lorenzo moved beside me, reading over my shoulder. His mother. She's in a care facility on the south side. Advanced Alzheimer's. Private facility, not covered by insurance. So he needed money. Rest. Enough to cover her care and his debts. Enough to make him vulnerable to offers he should have refused. Lorenzo straightened, looking around the apartment with calculating eyes. Marco wasn't a true believer. He wasn't trying to take me down for power or revenge. He was just desperate. Which means whoever hired him knew about his mother. Knew about the medical bills. They targeted him specifically because he was desperate enough to take the job. Who would know that kind of detail about your employees? Someone inside my organization. Someone with access to personnel files, financial records. His expression went cold. Someone I trust. The implications hung in the air between us, heavy and poisonous. There's something else, I said, moving to the desk in the corner. It was the only organized space in the apartment. Papers neatly stacked. Laptop closed but plugged in. This doesn't match the rest of the place. Everything else is chaos, but this desk is controlled. Careful. Lorenzo opened the laptop. Password protected. He pulled out his phone, typed something and waited. 30 seconds later the screen unlocked. How did you? I have people who can do things. Don't ask questions you don't want answered. He scrolled through files, his expression darkening with each click. Emails. Encrypted, but my people can crack them later. And look at this. He turned the laptop toward me. On the screen was a folder labeled, Insurance. Inside were dozens of files. Photos, documents, recordings. He was documenting everything, Lorenzo said, a note of surprise in his voice. Every meeting with his contact, every instruction he received, every payment. He was building a case against whoever hired him. Why? If he was desperate enough to take the job, why document it? Because desperate people are smart people. He knew if the hit succeeded, his employers might kill him anyway to cover their tracks. But if he had evidence, if he could prove who hired him, that was his insurance. His leverage to stay alive. Lorenzo pulled out a flash drive, copying the entire folder. This is it. This is what we needed. Once we decrypt these files. The apartment door burst open. 3 men in dark suits, moving with military precision. Not police. Their weapons were too expensive, their movements too coordinated. Mr. Volkov, the lead man said. His gun trained on Lorenzo's chest. You're trespassing. We're going to need you to come with us. Lorenzo didn't reach for a weapon. Didn't even tense. He just stood there, utterly calm, the flash drive palmed in his hand behind his back. I don't think so, he said mildly. This is a private residence, and I have authorization to be here. Who are you? Building security. Building security doesn't carry Sig Sauer P226S with custom grips. Military or private contractor. Which means you're not here officially. You're here because someone sent you. Someone who's watching this apartment, waiting to see who shows up looking for Marco's files. The lead man's expression didn't change, but his finger moved fractionally on the trigger. The files, Mr. Volkov. Hand them over and we'll consider this a misunderstanding. And the girl. She's a complication. Complications get resolved. Everything happened at once. Lorenzo moved, shoving me behind him with one hand while hurling the laptop at the lead gunman with the other. The man flinched, his shot going wide. Glass shattered, the window, the mirror, something expensive and irrelevant. Cale came through the door like a battering ram, taking down the second gunman with brutal efficiency. Bones cracked. Someone screamed. I dropped to the floor, my hands over my head, the world reduced to sounds. Gunfire, shouting, the wet thud of flesh hitting flesh. Then silence. I looked up. 2 gunmen were unconscious on the floor. The third, the leader, was on his knees, Lorenzo's gun pressed to the base of his skull. Who sent you? Lorenzo's voice was soft, deadly. Fuck you. Lorenzo pulled the trigger. I screamed. But the gun just clicked, empty chamber. A threat, not an execution. Last chance. Who sent you? The man was shaking now, fear overriding training. I don't know. Anonymous contract. Dark web posting. Kill anyone who searches Marco's apartment, retrieve any files they find. That's all I know. I swear. Lorenzo studied him for a long moment. Then he clubbed him across the temple with the gun. The man dropped unconscious. Cale. Clean this up. Make it look like a robbery gone wrong. What about them? Cale gestured to the unconscious men. They'll wake up in a few hours with headaches and amnesia about tonight. If they're smart, they'll leave Chicago. If not, Lorenzo shrugged. Natural selection. He turned to me, holding out his hand. We need to go. Now. I took his hand, let him pull me to my feet. My legs were shaking. My ears rang from the gunfire. But I was alive. We were in the SUV 30 seconds later, speeding away from the scene. Lorenzo sat beside me, checking the flash drive to make sure it hadn't been damaged in the fight. You almost killed that man, I said, my voice distant, shocked. I would have killed all 3 of them if necessary. To protect the files. To protect you. He looked at me, his expression unreadable. This is what I am, Era. This is what you agreed to when you took my hand. If you can't handle it, tell me now. I'll put you on a plane tonight. No judgment. No consequences. I wanted to say yes. Wanted to demand he let me go. Let me return to my safe, invisible life where the worst thing that happened was a drunk customer grabbing my ass. But I couldn't. Because somewhere in those encrypted files was the answer I'd been searching for. The name of the person who'd killed my father. And because, God help me, some part of me had felt alive for the first time in 6 years watching Lorenzo move. Watching him protect me. Watching him be exactly what he was without apology. I'm not going anywhere, I said. He smiled. It was genuine this time, relieved. Good. Because I'm starting to think I need you more than you need me. Why? Because you see things I don't. Because you're not afraid to tell me the truth. And because... He stopped, something flickering across his face. Because it's been a long time since I had someone watching my back who I actually trusted. You barely know me. I know you saved my life when you had no reason to. I know you're here for revenge, not money or power. That makes you more trustworthy than 90% of the people in my organization. He handed me the flash drive. Keep this. If something happens to me, if I don't make it out of whatever's coming, you take this and run. Get the files decrypted. Find your father's killer. Get your justice. Nothing's going to happen to you. You don't know that. Neither do I. But I've been in this business long enough to know that the moment you think you're untouchable is the moment someone proves you wrong. He looked at me directly. Promise me. If I die, you run. You don't try to avenge me, don't try to finish what we started. You just survive. That's not. Promise me, Era. The intensity in his voice, the fear barely concealed beneath the command. It struck something in me I didn't want to examine too closely. I promise, I whispered. He nodded, satisfied. Then he did something that surprised me. He took my hand, the one holding the flash drive, and squeezed it gently. We're going to figure this out, he said. We're going to find who's trying to kill me, who killed your father. We're going to make them pay. Together. Together, I echoed. The word felt heavier than it should have. More significant. Like we were sealing a pact that went deeper than simple cooperation. The wolf and the ghost. The hunter and the hunted. Learning to be predators together. Back at the penthouse, Lorenzo disappeared into his study with a flash drive, leaving me alone with Kale and my racing thoughts. I retreated to the library, to the safety of books and silence. But I couldn't focus on reading. My mind kept replaying the apartment, the gunman, the violence, Lorenzo's absolute calm in the face of death. This is what I am, he'd said. And I'd said I could handle it. But could I? Could I really live in this world of violence and secrets, where people died for being complications and loyalty was measured by how many bodies you'd bury for someone? I picked up the book of Italian sonnets, letting it fall open to the marked page. My love is like a fever, longing still. Lorenzo's mother had written, don't become your father. Don't let love make you sick. But what if it was already too late? What if the fever had already begun? You're still awake. Turn. Lorenzo stood at the top of the spiral staircase, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, looking exhausted and human and dangerous all at once. Couldn't sleep, I said. Neither could I. He moved into the room, collapsing into the worn leather armchair. The files are being decrypted. Should have preliminary results by morning. Names, locations, connections. Everything Marco documented. And then we start hunting. Following threads, eliminating suspects, closing in on whoever ordered the hit. He looked at me. It's going to get worse before it gets better. More violence. More danger. Are you sure you want to see this through? I came to Chicago to find my father's killer. I'm not leaving until I do. Even if it destroys you in the process. I'm already destroyed. I've been a ghost for 6 years, barely alive, just surviving. I gestured around the library at him, at everything. This is the first time I've felt like I'm actually doing something instead of just existing. He was quiet for a long moment, studying me with those winter-gray eyes. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone softer. Someone who'd break under pressure. Someone I'd have to protect from themselves as much as from my enemies. He smiled slightly. But you're not soft, are you? You're steel wrapped in silk. Dangerous in ways you probably don't even realize yet. I'm not dangerous. I'm just. You're observant, intelligent, willing to do what's necessary to get what you want. That's more dangerous than a gun, Era. Because people with guns can be disarmed. But people with your kind of mind, they find ways around every obstacle. They see weaknesses no one else can see. The way he said it, not quite a compliment, not quite a warning, made something tighten in my chest. Is that why you're keeping me close? Because I'm useful. I'm keeping you close because... He stopped himself, shook his head. It doesn't matter. Point is, you're here. You're safe. And tomorrow we start getting answers. He stood to leave, but I stopped him. Lorenzo, what you said in the car, about trusting me, did you mean it? He turned back, and the look in his eyes was raw, unguarded. Yes, and that terrifies me more than any bullet or knife or poison ever has. Because trust is the weakness that gets you killed in this world. But with you... He moved closer, close enough that I could feel his breath. I can't seem to help myself. We stood there, inches apart, the air between us charged with something I didn't want to name. "This is a bad idea," I whispered. "Terrible," he agreed. "We barely know each other." "I know enough. You're a criminal. You're a woman who saved my life and is seeking justice for her father. You're brave and brilliant and so goddamn beautiful it hurts to look at you." His hand came up, almost touching my face but not quite. "And I'm a monster who wants to corrupt you and protect you in equal measure." "Lorenzo." He stepped back, breaking the spell. "Get some rest. Tomorrow we go to war. And I need you sharp." Then he was gone, leaving me alone in the library with racing pulse and dangerous thoughts. The fever was starting, and I had no idea how to cure it. Chapter 3. The Price of Silence. The decryption took 3 days. 3 days of waiting in Lorenzo's gilded cage, watching the city below like a prisoner watching freedom through bars. 3 days of careful distance. Lorenzo disappeared into his study for hours at a time, emerging only for brief meals where we discussed nothing important. 3 days of feeling the weight of that almost moment in the library, the ghost of his hand that had nearly touched my face. Cale remained my silent shadow. I explored every inch of the penthouse, memorizing exits that didn't exist, windows that were too high to jump from. I read Lorenzo's mother's books. The poetry, the philosophy, the literature of people who'd stared into darkness and tried to find meaning there. And I thought about my father. 6 years ago, I'd identified a body that I was told was him. Closed casket viewing. They'd said the accident had been too severe, that I wouldn't want to see him like that. I'd believed them. Grieved him. Spent 6 years thinking he was gone. But Lorenzo had said my father came to him 3 days before he died. Had files, evidence, wanted protection. Lorenzo had hesitated. And my father had died. Or had he? The question had been eating at me since that night in Marco's apartment. Bodies could be faked. Lorenzo himself had said it. Dental records altered, identification manufactured. The people who'd wanted my father dead were the same people who owned coroners and cops and anyone else who needed to be bought. What if my father wasn't dead? What if he'd been running all this time, and I'd been mourning a ghost? On the morning of the 4th day, Lorenzo found me in the library. "The files are decrypted," he said without preamble. "You need to see this." I followed him to his study, a space I hadn't been allowed into before. It was darker than the rest of the penthouse, paneled in rich wood, dominated by a massive desk that looked like it had been carved from a single ancient tree. The walls were covered in screens showing security feeds, financial data, information that probably wasn't meant for civilian eyes. But what caught my attention was the printed document on his desk. Photo paperclipped to the top. I stepped closer. The photo was grainy, taken from a distance with a telephoto lens. 2 men at an outdoor cafe. Heads bent in conversation. One was Marco. The other made my breath stop. Older, grayer, thinner than I remembered. But unmistakable. My father. "That was taken 3 weeks ago," Lorenzo said quietly. 2 weeks before Marco tried to poison me. Your father met with Marco 4 times over the course of a month. The last meeting was the day before the attempt on my life. I couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. The room was spinning, tilting, everything I thought I knew shattering like glass. "There's more." Lorenzo pulled up another image on one of the screens. Financial records. Money trail. $50,000 deposited into Marco's account from an offshore shell company. That same shell company paid your father $200,000 3 months ago. "No." The word came out strangled. "No, that's not, he wouldn't." "I'm sorry, Era. But the evidence is clear. Your father hired Marco to kill me. Your father is still alive. And he's been orchestrating this entire thing." I grabbed the edge of the desk to stay upright. "Why? Why would he want you dead?" "I don't know yet. But I have theories." Lorenzo pulled up more files. Encrypted emails, decoded messages. "Your father's been working with someone. Code name Hawk. They've been planning this for months. The hit on me was supposed to be the first move in something bigger. Power shift. Redistribution of territory. Hawk. The name meant nothing to me. Who is he? I don't know. But Marco's files reference him repeatedly. He's the architect. Your father is just the... Lorenzo paused, choosing his words carefully. The logistics expert. The man who knows my organization well enough to find its weak points. The pieces were falling into place, forming a picture I didn't want to see. My father came to you 6 years ago. Said he wanted protection. You said you'd think about it. Yes. But what if that wasn't why he came? What if he was gathering information? Learning about your operations, your security, your weaknesses. And when you said you'd think about it, when you didn't immediately accept. He realized I was suspicious. So he faked his death to stop me from investigating further. Lorenzo's expression was grim. And then he spent the next 6 years planning his revenge. For what I still don't know. But he wanted me dead badly enough to risk exposure to hire Marco to. He stopped looking at me. To let his daughter believe he was gone. The cruelty of it struck me like a physical blow. 6 years. 6 years of grieving, of being alone, of thinking I was the last of my family. And all that time he'd been alive. Plotting. Using my grief as cover for his schemes. I need to see him. My voice sounded foreign, hollow. I need to talk to him. Hear him explain. We don't know where he is. The offshore accounts are untraceable. The meetings with Marco were in public places. Coffee shops, parks, never the same location twice. He's been careful. Professional. Lorenzo moved closer. His presence solid in my spinning world. But we'll find him. The files have given us starting points. Known associates, patterns of movement. We'll track him down. And then what? You kill him. Lorenzo was quiet for a long moment. That depends. On why he wants me dead. On what threat he poses. On. He looked at me directly. On what you want me to do. What I want. A hysterical laugh bubbled up. I don't know what I want. I thought I wanted justice for my father's death. Now I find out he's not dead. And he's the one trying to commit murder. I can't. My legs gave out. Lorenzo caught me before I hit the floor. His arms strong and steady, pulling me against his chest. I wanted to push him away, to maintain distance, to process this alone like I'd processed everything else in my life. But I couldn't. The walls I'd built over 6 years were crumbling, and I was so tired of being strong, of being invisible, of pretending I didn't need anyone. So I let him hold me while I broke apart. I'm sorry, he murmured against my hair. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. I'm sorry your father is a monster. You can say it. He's a monster who let me grieve him while he plotted murder. I pulled back, wiping tears I didn't remember starting to cry. You were right. The moment you think you're untouchable is the moment someone proves you wrong. I thought my father was a victim. Turns out he was playing me all along. You're not responsible for his choices. Aren't I? If I hadn't saved you that night, if I'd just looked away like I was supposed to, Marco would have succeeded. My father's plan would have worked. And I'd still be invisible, still grieving, still thinking I was avenging him while he was actually the architect of everything. You saved my life. That's not something to regret. Isn't it? Maybe the world would be better off without you. Without me. Without any of this. Lorenzo's hands came up to frame my face, forcing me to look at him. Listen to me. Your father made his choices. You made yours. Those are separate things. You saved me because you have a conscience, because you see poison for what it is and can't look away. That's not weakness, Era. That's strength. Don't let his betrayal corrupt what you are. And what am I? Someone who deserves better than a father who fakes his death. Better than a life spent hiding. Better than... He stopped, his thumb brushing across my cheek. Better than me. The admission hung between us, raw and unexpected. You don't get to decide what I deserve, I said softly. No. But I can recognize when someone is too good for the darkness I live in. His eyes searched mine. You should run, Era. Take the flash drive, take the evidence, and disappear. Start over somewhere your father can't find you. Somewhere I can't corrupt you further. Is that what you want? What I want doesn't matter. What's safe for you, that's what matters. Stop. I pulled away from his hands, standing on unsteady legs. Stop pretending you're protecting me. You're protecting yourself. If I leave, you lose your advantage. You lose someone who can see patterns, who can help you hunt my father and this hawk person. That's why you want me gone, because you're afraid if I stay, I'll become a liability instead of an asset. A flash of anger crossed his face. You think I'm that cold? That calculating? I think you're exactly that calculating. You're a criminal, Lorenzo. You've built an empire on fear and violence and ruthless pragmatism. Why would I be any different? Why would you treat me as anything other than a useful tool? Because you're not a tool. The words came out harsh, almost desperate. Christ, you're the first person in 10 years who's looked at me and seen something other than the wolf. You saved my life for no reason other than you couldn't watch someone die. You're grieving a father who doesn't deserve your tears. And you're still here, still fighting, still refusing to break. You're not a tool. He stopped himself, jaw clenched, as if the words he wanted to say were too dangerous to speak aloud. I'm what? Challenged. You're everything I didn't know I needed. And everything I don't deserve to keep. The confession shattered what was left of the careful distance we'd been maintaining. The air between us charged with something electric, dangerous, inevitable. We can't, I whispered, even as my body moved closer to his. This is wrong. You're a criminal. My father wants you dead. I don't even know who I am anymore. Then be someone new. Someone who doesn't carry the weight of ghosts and dead fathers and 6 years of invisible grief. His hand came up to my face again, and this time I didn't pull away. Be Era. Just Era. Not the ghost. Not the grieving daughter. Just a woman who's allowed to feel something real. And what do you feel? Terrified, he said simply. Because I'm falling for you, and falling is the most dangerous thing a man like me can do. He kissed me. Not rough, not demanding. Soft, questioning, as if he were asking permission with his mouth that his words couldn't quite form. I should have pushed him away. Should have remembered who he was, what he was. All the reasons this was a disaster waiting to happen. But I didn't. I kissed him back, pouring 6 years of loneliness and fear and desperate hunger for connection into that kiss. His arms came around me, pulling me flush against him, and I felt the sharp edge of his control start to slip. Felt the wolf beneath the man, barely leashed, waiting to devour. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. This doesn't solve anything, I said. I know. My father still wants you dead. Hawk is still out there. Everything is still. I know. He rested his forehead against mine. But for one moment can we pretend that we're just two people who found something real in the middle of hell? One moment, I agreed. We stood there in his study, surrounded by evidence of my father's betrayal and the conspiracy to kill the man I was holding, and we pretended that we were normal, that this could work. That love, if that's what this fever was, could survive in the darkness. But even as I held him, even as I let myself feel something other than grief and rage, a cold thought crystallized in my mind. If my father wants Lorenzo dead, if he's been planning this for years, then he knows things. Weaknesses, secrets, things I could use, things I could exploit. I pulled back slightly, looking into Lorenzo's winter-gray eyes. I want to help you find him, my father. I want to look him in the eye and ask him why. Why he let me believe he was dead. Why he wants you dead. Why he's done all of this. Era, promise me. When you find him, when you track him down, I get to talk to him first. Before you kill him, before you do whatever you're planning to do. I get that moment. Lorenzo studied my face for a long moment. Then he nodded. You have my word. When we find your father, you get to confront him. You get your answers. Thank you. He kissed my forehead, gentle and protective. Get some rest. Tomorrow we start hunting in earnest. Following the money, tracing the connections. We'll find him, Era. We'll find them both, your father and Hawk. And we'll end this. I nodded, letting him think I agreed. Letting him think we were on the same side. But as I walked back to my room, the flash drive heavy in my pocket, a plan was already forming in my mind. Lorenzo thought my father was the enemy. Thought he was protecting me from a man who'd betrayed us both. But what if Lorenzo was wrong? What if there was more to this story? Reasons my father had faked his death. Reasons he wanted Lorenzo dead that had nothing to do with simple revenge. What if the real monster wasn't my father at all? I needed answers. Real answers, not the ones Lorenzo was feeding me. And there was only one way to get them. I had to find my father first. I had to hear his side of the story. And then I'd decide who really deserved to die. The ghost was learning to hunt. And the wolf had no idea he'd just kissed his potential executioner. Chapter 4. The Wolf's Library. The plan was simple in theory, terrifying in practice. I would escape. Lorenzo's people would stage it to look authentic. A moment of distraction, a door left unlocked, security footage showing me fleeing the penthouse in the early morning hours. I'd go to a safe house on the outskirts of the city, a place owned by one of Lorenzo's shell corporations, far enough from his known properties to seem like genuine refuge. And then we'd wait for Hawk to come for me. But we had 3 days before the trap would be set. 3 days for Lorenzo to put all the pieces in place, to ensure that when Hawk made his move, it would be his last. 3 days that I would spend in the penthouse, in the strange liminal space between captivity and something else. The night after the confrontation with Sergio, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw violence. Lorenzo's fist connecting with his cousin's jaw, the cold efficiency in his eyes, the way he'd gripped Sergio's throat like he was considering ending a life with the same thought most people gave to swatting a fly. At 2 a.m, I gave up and wandered to the library. I'd spent hours here over the past weeks, but always during the day. At night, it was different. Shadows pooling in the corners, the city lights filtering through the tall windows creating strange patterns on the spines of books. The spiral staircase cast twisted shadows like a DNA helix made of iron. I climbed to the second level, to the reading nook with a leather chair and the small desk. The book of Italian sonnets was still there, exactly where I'd left it days ago. I picked it up, letting it fall open to the marked page. L'amor mio è come febbre, bramando ancora. My love is like a fever, longing still, a voice said from behind me. I spun around, the book clutched to my chest. Lorenzo stood at the top of the spiral staircase, dressed in dark pajama pants and a t-shirt, the most casual I'd ever seen him. His hair was disheveled, his feet bare. He looked younger somehow, more human. I didn't hear you come in, I said, my heart still racing. I know. You were too focused on the words. He moved closer, his eyes on the book in my hands. My mother used to read that sonnet to me when I was a boy, before she understood what my father really was. Before she learned that love like fever only leads to burning. What happened to her? She left when I was 12, took my younger sister and disappeared in the middle of the night. My father hunted for her for years, but she was smarter than he gave her credit for. She knew how to become invisible. His gaze shifted to me. Like you. Did you ever find her? No. I stopped looking after my father died. I realized she was probably happier not being found. Happier not having to see what I'd become. He gestured to the book. She left that behind. It's one of the few things of hers I still have. I looked down at the sonnets, understanding them differently now. This wasn't just poetry. It was a relic. A memory of the woman who'd loved him before he became the wolf. Why did you mark this one? Yes. This particular sonnet. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he took the book from my hands, his fingers brushing mine in the exchange. He read aloud, his voice low and surprisingly lyrical. L'amor mio e cum feber, bramando ancora per circe più effedurare la malatia, nutrendo su circe alimenta la mia infermita, Illinois mio desiderio incerto che non conoscura. He looked up at me. Do you know what it means? The full verse. My love is like a fever, longing still for that which makes the disease endure, feeding on that which sustains my sickness, my uncertain desire that knows no cure. Pause. It's about destructive love. Love that consumes rather than heals. My mother circled it the day before she left. I found the book on my bed with a note that said, Asterisk, don't become your father. Don't let love make you sick. His smile was bitter. I've spent my entire adult life trying to follow her advice, keeping distance, keeping control, never letting anyone close enough to become a fever. Until the word hung between us, heavy with implication. Until a ghost saved my life and made me realize that some fevers are worth the burn. He set the book down on the desk and stepped closer. You should hate me, Sasha. You should be planning your escape for real, not as part of some trap. I've taken your freedom, put you in danger, made you complicit in violence. By every measure, I'm the villain in your story. Then why don't I whispered. Because you recognize the same sickness in yourself. The fever of wanting something you know will destroy you, but being unable to turn away. His hand came up to my face, fingers tracing the line of my jaw with aching gentleness. We're both burning, little ghost. The question is whether we burn together or burn each other to ash. I should have stepped back. Should have reminded myself, that this was Stockholm Syndrome, trauma bonding, the psychological prison as dangerous as the physical one. But I didn't move. 'Cause he was right. Some part of me had been burning since the moment his winter-gray eyes found mine across the bar. Since he'd wrapped his hand around my wrist and called me little ghost, like he was naming something he intended to keep. I'm afraid, I admitted. Good. Fear means you're smart enough to understand what this is. What we are. His thumb brushed across my lower lip. I'm afraid, too. Of what I feel when I look at you. Of what I do to keep you safe. Of how easily I could become the monster my father was, if someone tried to take you from me. Lorenzo. Shoo. He leaned in, his forehead resting against mine. We don't have to decide anything tonight. We don't have to name this thing between us. We just have to survive the next few days. After that, when Hawk is dead and you're safe, we can figure out what comes next. But his hands were sliding into my hair, tilting my face up to his. And mine were gripping his t-shirt, pulling him closer. We were both lying and we both knew it. We'd already decided. When his lips met mine, it wasn't the violent claiming I'd half expected. It was soft, questioning, as if he were learning the shape of my mouth through touch. As if he had all the time in the world and wanted to memorize every detail. I responded in kind, my hands sliding up his chest to his shoulders, feeling the hard muscle beneath warm skin. He tasted like whiskey and something darker, more complex, like smoke and cedar and danger. The kiss deepened gradually. Heat building between us like a slow-burning fire. His hands tightened in my hair, angling my head to take the kiss deeper. I made a sound low in my throat, and I felt him smile against my mouth. Careful, he murmured, his lips trailing to my jaw, down the column of my throat. I'm trying to be gentleman. Trying to give you time to think, to be sure. I'm sure. The words came out breathless, desperate. I've been sure since you grabbed my wrist in that bar. Since you looked at me like I mattered. Like I was real. He pulled back just enough to meet my eyes. His own darkened with want and something fiercer. You are real. You're the most real thing in my life. Everything else is theater, performance, the role I play to survive. But with you. He cupped my face in both hands. With you I get to be Lorenzo. Just a man. Not the wolf. Show me, I whispered. Show me who you are when the mask comes off. Something broke in his expression, the last wall crumbling. He kissed me again, harder now, with purpose and hunger. His hands slid down my body, tracing curves through the thin fabric of my sleep clothes. Every touch left fire in its wake. We moved together toward the leather chair, a tangle of limbs and desperate breathing. He sat, pulling me onto his lap so I straddled him, my legs on either side of his hips. The intimacy of the position made my breath hitch. "Tell me to stop," he said, his voice rough. "Tell me this is wrong, that you're not ready, that I'm taking advantage." I kissed him to shut him up. Poured every complicated emotion I'd been feeling into that kiss. The fear and the desire, the anger at my captivity and the gratitude for his protection, the logical part of my brain screaming danger and the illogical part that felt safer in his arms than anywhere else in the world. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. "Stay with me tonight," he said. Not a command. Request. Not for this. Me hold you. Let me pretend for a few hours that you're mine by choice, not by circumstance. It was the most vulnerable thing he'd said to me. This powerful, dangerous man asking for something as simple as my presence. "Okay," I whispered. He stood, lifting me with him as if I weighed nothing. I wrapped my arms around his neck, my face buried against his shoulder as he carried me down the spiral staircase, through the silent penthouse to his bedroom. I'd never been in his room before. It was sparse, masculine, dark wood furniture, a massive bed with charcoal gray linens, floor-to-ceiling windows showing the sleeping city. No personal effects, no photos, nothing that revealed the man who lived here. Except on the nightstand, I saw a single photograph in a simple frame. A woman with dark hair and warm eyes, holding 2 children, a boy of about 10 and a girl who couldn't have been more than 6. The boy had Lorenzo's features, but his eyes were unguarded, innocent. Before the world had taught him to be the wolf. "Your mother and sister," I said softly. "The last picture taken before she left. She looks happy there, doesn't she? Like she didn't know yet what was coming." He set me down on the edge of the bed. "I keep it to remind myself that happiness is possible, that people can escape, that sometimes leaving is the strongest choice you can make. Is that why you're letting me go? After this is over?" He knelt in front of me, his hands on my knees, his eyes searching mine. "I'm letting you go because you deserve the choice. Because forcing you to stay would make me exactly like my father, a man who kept the things he loved in cages and called it protection." His jaw tightened. "But I won't lie and say it won't destroy me to watch you leave." I reached out, running my fingers through his hair. He closed his eyes, leaning into the touch like a wolf accepting gentle hands for the first time. "Come to bed," I said. "We'll worry about leaving tomorrow." He rose, shedding his t-shirt and revealing a body that bore the evidence of his life. Scars mapping violence survived. He climbed into bed beside me, pulling me against his chest, my back to his front. His arm wrapped around my waist, holding me close but not constraining. "Tell me something true," he murmured against my hair. "Something you've never told anyone." I was quiet for a moment, feeling the steady beat of his heart against my back. "I'm tired of being invisible. I've spent 6 years being no one, being nothing, just trying to survive. And it's exhausting. Sometimes I think about what it would be like to just be seen, to matter to someone, to have a life that's more than just enduring." His arm tightened around me. "You matter to me. You're the only thing that's mattered in longer than I can remember. Now you tell me something true." He was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "I'm terrified that when you really see me, not the man reading poetry, not the protector keeping you safe, but the monster who does terrible things to maintain power, you'll look at me the way my mother looked at my father the day she left. Like I'm a stranger wearing a familiar face. Like I'm something to be escaped." I turned in his arms, facing him in the darkness. His eyes were shadows, but I could feel the vulnerability radiating from him. "I've already seen you," I said. "I've seen you be gentle and violent, strategic and impulsive, cruel and merciful. I've seen all of it, Lorenzo. And I'm still here. For now." "For now," I agreed. But now is all we have. Tomorrow you might be killed by Hawk's assassin. I might be shot trying to escape. The safe house might be compromised. We might not survive the week. I pressed my palm against his cheek. So let's stop pretending we have forever to figure this out. Let's just have tonight. He kissed me then, slow and deep and heartbreaking. His hands mapped my body with reverent care, learning every curve, every response. We shed clothes in the darkness, skin finding skin. Heat building between us with inevitable force. When he finally entered me, it was with aching slowness, giving me time to adjust, to accept, to yield. His eyes never left mine, even in the darkness. He watched my face with that same intense focus he gave everything, as if committing every expression to memory. We moved together in the silence of his bedroom, the city lights painting patterns on our skin. There was no violence in it, no desperate claiming. Just two people trying to find connection in a world that had taught them both to be alone. After, when we lay tangled together, his fingers tracing idle patterns on my shoulder, he spoke into the darkness. When I was 17, my father took me to an execution. A man who'd betrayed the family. He made me watch as they tortured him for hours before finally killing him. Afterward, he asked me what I'd learned. Lorenzo's voice was distant, hollow. I said I'd learned that betrayal has consequences. He laughed and said, "No. You learn that love is the most dangerous weakness you can have. That man betrayed us because he loved his daughter more than he feared us. Love made him weak, and weakness got him killed." I turned in his arms to face him. "What are you telling me?" "I'm telling you that my father was wrong. Love isn't weakness. It's the only thing that makes any of this. The violence, the darkness, the impossible choices. It's the only thing that makes it bearable." His hand cupped my face. "I'm telling you that I'm falling in love with you, Sasha Greaves. And it terrifies me more than any enemy ever has." My breath caught. "Lorenzo, you don't have to say it back. I don't expect you to. Stockholm Syndrome, trauma bonding, whatever psychological term you want to use to explain this away. I understand. But I needed you to know. Before we walk into whatever's coming, I needed you to know that you matter. That you've mattered since the moment you slid that napkin across the bar." Tears stung my eyes. "I don't know what I feel. I don't know if what I'm feeling is real or just survival instinct telling me to attach to my captor. I don't know if I'm falling in love with you or just falling apart. That's okay. We'll figure it out together. Or we won't, and you'll leave, and I'll let you because that's what love actually is. Wanting someone to be free, even if their freedom takes them away from you." I kissed him, tasting salt from my own tears. "Ask me again in a week. When this is over. When I've had time away from you to think clearly. If I come back, if I choose to come back, then you'll know it's real. And if you don't, then at least we'll both know I was strong enough to walk away." He held me tighter, as if he could stop time through sheer force of will. "Promise me something." "What?" "Promise me you'll survive. Whatever happens with Hawk, whatever trap we're walking into. Promise me you'll do whatever it takes to survive. Run if you have to. Forget about me, forget about the plan. Just live. I promise if you promise the same. Deal." He kissed my forehead, my temples, my closed eyelids. "Now sleep. We have 3 days before you become bait. Let's not waste them." I closed my eyes, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat, feeling safer and more endangered than I'd ever felt in my life. Somewhere in the darkness, Silas Hawke was planning his next move. Sergio was locked in a secure location, probably already telling his captors whatever they wanted to hear. And in 3 days, I would walk into the lion's den with nothing but a tracking device and the hope that Lorenzo could reach me before Hawke killed me. But tonight, wrapped in the arms of the wolf, I let myself believe we might actually survive this. I let myself believe in happy endings, even though everything I'd learned about this world said they didn't exist. The fever was burning through both of us now. The question was whether we'd survive the fire. The next morning I woke alone. Lorenzo was gone, But he'd left a note on his pillow in that precise handwriting. Franco is making breakfast. We need to discuss the details of your escape. Also, I found something in Sergio's files you need to see. Something about your father. My blood ran cold. I dressed quickly and found them in the dining room. Franco with his tablet, Lorenzo with coffee and an expression I couldn't read. What did you find? I asked without preamble. Lorenzo slid a folder across the table. Sergio kept files on anyone he thought might be useful leverage. He had one on you. It includes details about your father's death that weren't in the police report. My hand shook as I opened the folder. Inside were photographs. Surveillance shots of my father in the weeks before his death. Him meeting with men I didn't recognize. Him looking over his shoulder, paranoid, afraid. And then, at the bottom of the stack, a photograph that made my breath stop. My father, sitting across a cafe table from a man whose face was partially obscured by shadow. A man wearing a ring on his right pinky finger. That's Hawk, Lorenzo said quietly. Your father met with Silas Hawk 2 weeks before he died. The room spun. No, that's not. He was in witness protection. He wouldn't have. There's more. Franco pulled up something on his tablet. We've been digging into your father's testimony against the Castellanos. The information he gave the feds, it was incomplete. Carefully incomplete. He gave them enough to take down the competition but kept certain operations protected. What operations? Lorenzo's jaw tightened. Import routes. Specifically, the routes Hawk uses to move his contracts internationally. Your father wasn't trying to escape the life, Sasha. He was trying to eliminate his competition and consolidate power. The Castellanos figured it out and had him killed. But not before he made a deal with Hawk. Protection for his daughter in exchange for continued access to those routes. I sank into a chair, the folder slipping from my nerveless fingers. You're saying my father made a deal with the man who's now trying to kill you? The man we're about to use me as bait to catch. I'm saying your father was deeper in this world than you knew. And Hawk has a file on you going back 6 years. He's been watching you, Sasha. Making sure his investment in your father's protection was worth the cost. And now I've interfered in his latest contract, I finished, feeling sick. I saved you, which cost him his fee from Sergio. He's not just coming after me because I'm a witness. He's coming after me because I owe him a debt. My father's debt. Yes. The word hung in the air, heavy and final. Everything I'd believed about my father, that he'd tried to do the right thing, that he'd been a victim of the life he'd chosen, it was a lie. He'd been a player, not a pawn. And his last play had been to sell my freedom to a ghost I'd never even known existed. So what do we do? Asked, my voice hollow. Lorenzo reached across the table, taking my hand. We do what we planned. We use you as bait, we catch Hawk, and we end this. But now we know he'll come personally. He'll want to collect your father's debt face to face. Which means we'll actually get a shot at him. I looked up at Lorenzo, at Franco, at the life I'd stumbled into. When do we start? Lorenzo's smile was sharp, predatory. Tomorrow night. We stage your escape. Franco will leak information about where you've gone, the safe house on Miller Road. Hawk will send someone to verify it's really you. And when he's satisfied, he'll come himself. And then we'll show him what happens when someone threatens what's mine. The possessiveness in his voice should have bothered me. Instead, it made me feel something I hadn't felt in 6 years. Protected. Valued. Worth fighting for. Even if it was an illusion born of trauma and circumstance, I'd hold on to it for as long as I could. Because in 3 days I might be dead. And if I was going to die, at least I'd die knowing someone had cared enough to avenge me. Chapter 5. The Betrayer's Confession. Lorenzo kept his word. Over the next 2 weeks, he taught me the architecture of his empire. Not just the surface, the legitimate businesses, the shell corporations, the money laundering, but the deeper mechanisms. The psychology of power. People think power is about violence, he said one morning, standing at the windows of his study while I sat at his desk, reviewing dossiers on his organization's key players. But violence is the crudest tool. Real power is about information, about knowing what people want, what they fear, and using that knowledge to make them choose what you want them to choose. He was teaching me to read people the way I read drink orders, looking for the tells, the inconsistencies, the truths hidden beneath performance. Anthony Ray Chi, he said, pulling up a file on one of the screens. He's been with me for 15 years. Handles my legitimate investment portfolio. Good man. Loyal. Or so I thought. He zoomed in on a series of financial transactions. But 3 months ago he started moving money. Small amounts, carefully hidden. Most people would miss it. What do you see? I studied the patterns, letting my mind work the way it had when I'd analyzed Marco's apartment. The amounts are irregular, but they follow a pattern. Every third Thursday. Always to different accounts, but the timing is consistent. Good. What else? The accounts, they're all registered to medical facilities, private hospitals, cancer treatment centers. I looked up at him. Someone in his family is sick. His daughter, 15 years old, leukemia. Treatment costs $500,000, not covered by insurance because it's experimental. Lorenzo's expression was unreadable. He's been stealing from me to save her life. Small amounts over time, hoping I wouldn't notice. Are you going to kill him? That depends on why you think I'm showing you this. It was a test. Everything Lorenzo did was a test. I thought about Anthony, a father desperate to save his daughter, stealing just enough to keep her alive, probably torturing himself over the betrayal every day. You're showing me because you want me to understand that betrayal isn't simple. That Anthony isn't a villain. He's a father making impossible choices. The same way my father probably made impossible choices that led to. I stopped. That led to wherever we are now. Exactly. Lorenzo pulled up another file. Real power isn't about punishing every transgression. It's about understanding the difference between betrayal from malice and betrayal from desperation. Anthony didn't steal because he wanted to hurt me. He stole because he was out of options. That makes him vulnerable, not malicious. So what do? I give him a choice. Cover his daughter's treatment quietly. Make it seem like her insurance finally came through. And then I watch to see if he reports the theft, if he confesses, or if he thinks he got away with it. His response tells me whether he's salvageable or if desperation has corrupted him beyond repair. And if he's corrupted. Lorenzo's expression went cold. Then I eliminate the threat. Gently if possible. A severance package, a recommendation to a competitor, a push toward retirement. But eliminate it nonetheless. And if he can't be gently eliminated, then I do what's necessary. Because the moment you let one betrayal slide out of sentiment rather than strategy, you signal to everyone else that loyalty is optional. And the empire collapses from within. It was brutal logic, ruthless, but I understood it. In Lorenzo's world, mercy wasn't about compassion, it was about calculation. About knowing when forgiveness served your interests better than punishment. So Anthony gets a chance because saving him serves you more than killing him. Yes. His daughter lives. He's bound to me by gratitude and guilt, and I get to keep a talented finance manager who now owes me a debt he can never repay. Lorenzo smiled. That's real power, Era. Not the gun. The leverage. The knowledge that you hold someone's most precious thing in your hands and they'll do anything to keep you from crushing it. The word should have horrified me. Instead, I felt something click into place. Understanding. This was how Lorenzo operated. This was how my father had operated before him. This entire world ran on leverage and debt and the careful manipulation of what people loved most. And if I wanted to survive it, if I wanted to find the truth about my father, I needed to understand this language. What's Anthony's leverage point? Yes. If you needed him to do something dangerous, something that might get him killed, how would you use his daughter? Lorenzo's eyes sharpened with approval. You're learning. The leverage isn't the daughter directly. That's too crude. The leverage is the guilt. Anthony has already crossed a line by stealing. He's already broken his own moral code. So I don't threaten his daughter. I offer him redemption. A chance to prove his loyalty wasn't permanently compromised. A dangerous mission that, if he survives, wipes the slate clean. He volunteers because refusing would mean accepting that he's become the man he hates. That's twisted. That's effective. He moved closer, his hand coming to rest on my shoulder. And it's the same game your father is playing with Marco, with whoever else he's recruited. He finds their breaking point, their daughter, their debt, their secret shame, and he uses it to make them believe they're choosing freely when really, he's already written their script. The mention of my father made my stomach tighten. 2 weeks of searching, and we still hadn't found him. The trail went cold after Marco's death. The offshore accounts were dead ends. The meetings had left no forensic evidence. My father was a ghost just like me. But Lorenzo had taught me that ghosts left patterns. You just had to know how to read them. I want to see Anthony, I said suddenly. When you confront him about the theft. I want to watch how you do it. Lorenzo studied me carefully. Why? Because you're teaching me to read people. I need to see it in practice. See how someone reacts when their leverage point is exposed. How they choose between truth and self-preservation. Slow smile. You're thinking about your father. About how he'll react when we finally corner him. What he'll say, how he'll justify what he's done. Yes. Okay. Anthony is coming here tonight. I called him this morning, told him we needed to discuss some irregularities in the accounts. He'll be terrified, expecting the worst. Lorenzo's hand moved from my shoulder to my face, gentle despite the brutality of what we were discussing. But watch carefully, because what you're about to see, the way a man crumbles when his secrets are exposed, that's going to be you and your father eventually. And you need to decide now if you can handle watching someone you love break. I can handle it. Can you? Because there's a difference between reading about violence in files and watching it happen to someone real. Someone who's been lying to you. Someone whose betrayal cuts personal. His thumb brushed across my cheek. When your father stands where Anthony will stand tonight, when he tries to justify why he faked his death and used your grief as cover for murder, will you still be able to make rational choices? Or will emotion compromise you? I won't know until it happens. Fair enough. He kissed my forehead, a gesture that had become familiar over the past 2 weeks. Then tonight you learn. But remember, once you see this you can't unsee it. Can't pretend you don't know how manipulation works. You'll start seeing it everywhere. In every conversation, every relationship, every kind word. You'll wonder if people are genuine or just playing their own game. Maybe that's better. Better to see the truth than live in comfortable illusion. Maybe, he agreed. Or maybe it's just a different kind of prison. One where you're never quite sure if what you're feeling is real or just another person's leverage game. He walked away, leaving me alone with that thought, and the dossiers of his organization spread across the desk. I pulled up Anthony's file again, studying his photo. Middle-aged, kind face, tired eyes. A man who looked like someone's father. Who was someone's father. In a few hours Lorenzo would break him. Would expose the theft, offer mercy, and bind Anthony to him with chains made of gratitude and guilt. Would transform a betrayal into deeper loyalty. And I would watch. Would learn. Would prepare for the day when my own father sat in that chair, and I had to decide whether to show him mercy or make him pay. The ghost was learning the wolf's language. Soon she'd be fluent. Anthony arrived at 8 p.m. sharp. He was a small man, smaller than his photos suggested, with graying hair and the careful posture of someone trying to look more confident than they felt. His suit was expensive but worn, the same one he'd probably been wearing for 5 years, unable to afford new clothes while his daughter's medical bills consumed everything. Lorenzo received him in the study, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. I sat in the corner, introduced as his consultant, a vague title that could mean anything. Anthony barely glanced at me. His attention fixed on Lorenzo with the trapped focus of prey recognizing predator. "Anthony," Lorenzo said warmly, as if this were a friendly meeting. "Thank you for coming. I know it's late, and you probably want to get home to your family. How is Elena? Still responding well to treatment?" The mention of his daughter made Anthony flinch. Yes, she's doing better. The new treatment is working. We're hopeful." "Good. That's good." Lorenzo smiled. It must be a relief after so many months of uncertainty. Experimental treatments are expensive, aren't they? $500,000, I believe. Anthony went pale. Yes, they're expensive, but insurance didn't cover it, Lorenzo said gently, pulling up financial records on his screen. "I know because I checked. Elena's treatment has been entirely out of pocket. And yet, somehow, you've managed to pay for it. On a salary of $200,000 a year, with a mortgage and living expenses and all the normal costs of life. Somehow, you found $500,000. The silence in the room was suffocating. Anthony's hands clenched on the arms of his chair, knuckles white. Sweat beaded on his forehead. I took a second mortgage. Borrowed from family." "Anthony." Lorenzo's voice hardened just slightly. "Don't lie to me. Not now. Not about this." Anthony crumbled. His shoulders sagged, his head dropped, and when he looked up, there were tears in his eyes. "I'm sorry. God, Lorenzo, I'm so sorry. I didn't want to. I never meant to betray you, but she's my daughter. She's 15. She has her whole life ahead of her, and the doctors said without this treatment." His voice broke. "I couldn't let her die. I couldn't. So you stole from me. Small amounts. Never enough to hurt the business. I tracked everything, kept careful records. I was gonna pay it back, I swear. When Elena was better, when the treatment was done, I'd have worked for free if necessary, just to make it right." "How much total?" $420,000. Over 3 months. Anthony pulled out a flash drive with shaking hands. "It's all here. Every transaction, every account. I wasn't trying to hide it permanently. I was just buying time. Until I could figure out another way." Lorenzo took the flash drive, turning it over in his hands. "You've worked for me for 15 years, Anthony. 15 years of loyalty. Why didn't you come to me? Ask for a loan? I'm not a monster. I understand family emergencies. Because asking for a loan means admitting weakness. And in this world," Anthony gestured helplessly, "weakness gets you killed. Or replaced. I couldn't risk it. Couldn't risk Elena losing her treatment because I'd made myself a liability." I watched Lorenzo's face, seeing the calculation behind his eyes. He'd already made his decision before Anthony walked in. This entire conversation was theater, designed to achieve a specific outcome. "You're right," Lorenzo said quietly. "Admitting weakness in this world is dangerous. But stealing is worse. Because now I have to decide. Am I the kind of leader who punishes betrayal regardless of motive? Or am I the kind who shows mercy and appears weak?" "Kill me," Anthony said suddenly. "I'll write a confession, make it look like suicide. Elena will get my life insurance, $3 million. Enough to cover her treatment and set her up for life. Just, please don't punish her for my mistakes. Don't take away her treatment. She's innocent." It was a noble offer. Desperate but noble. The ultimate leverage. A man willing to die to protect what he loved most. Lorenzo stood, walking around the desk to stand in front of Anthony. The older man flinched, expecting violence. Instead, Lorenzo placed a hand on his shoulder. "I'm not going to kill you, Anthony. And I'm not going to take away Elena's treatment. In fact," he pulled out a document, sliding it across the desk. "I'm going to cover the remaining costs. All of them. However long she needs care, whatever treatment she requires. I'll handle it." Anthony stared at the document like it was a hallucination. I don't understand. Why would you?" "Because you're valuable to me. Because 15 years of loyalty means something. Because, Lorenzo's voice softened. I understand what it means to make impossible choices to protect the people you love. I won't punish you for being human, Anthony. But the money I stole. Consider it an advance on your salary. You'll work it off over the next 10 years. No interest, no deadline pressure. Just continued loyalty and excellent work. Lorenzo moved back to his desk. But understand this, you get one chance. One. If you betray me again, if you ever steal or lie or compromise this organization, Elena's treatment stops immediately, and you'll wish I'd killed you tonight. Are we clear? Yes. Anthony's voice was choked with emotion. Yes, sir. I swear you won't regret this. I'll do anything you need. I know you will. That's the point. Lorenzo's smile was almost gentle. Go home, Anthony. Hug your daughter. Tell her the insurance came through, that everything's going to be fine. And then come back tomorrow ready to work. We have some accounts that need reorganizing. After Anthony left, stumbling, sobbing with relief, Lorenzo turned to me. That's how you build loyalty, he said. You find someone at their breaking point and you save them. Not out of kindness, out of strategy. Now Anthony doesn't just work for me. He owes me his daughter's life. He'll do things for me he'd never do for money or fear. He'll cross lines, compromise his morals, betray others. All because I showed him mercy when he expected death. That's monstrous, I said quietly. That's power. He walked to where I sat, tilting my chin up to meet his eyes. And that's what your father did to Marco. Found him at his breaking point. His mother's medical bills, and offered salvation. Marco didn't want to kill me. He did it because he owed a debt to the man who saved his mother. Just like Anthony now owes me a debt he can never fully repay. The parallel was deliberate. A lesson wrapped in demonstration. So everyone in your organization is bound by debt. By leverage. Everyone except you. His thumb brushed across my jaw. You're the only person here by genuine choice. No debt, no leverage, no obligation. That's what makes you dangerous, Era. That's what makes you different from everyone else. You can walk away at any time, and there's nothing I can hold over you to stop you. Except the answers about my father. That's my leverage point. Is it? Or is it something else now? He leaned closer, his breath warm against my face. I think your leverage point has shifted. I think you're staying for reasons that have nothing to do with your father and everything to do with. He stopped, searching my face. With whatever this is between us. That's arrogant. That's observant. He kissed me softly. I've been watching you the way you watch everyone else. Cataloging the tells. And do you know what I see? Someone who looks at me like I'm not a monster. Someone who challenges me instead of fearing me. Someone who's falling for the wolf despite knowing exactly what that means. You don't know what I'm feeling. Don't I? His hand moved to my throat, not threatening, just present. Feeling my pulse. Your heart races when I'm near. You lean into my touch instead of pulling away. You watch me when you think I'm not looking, with an expression that's half desire, half terror. You're falling, Era. The question is whether you'll let yourself land or whether you'll fight it all the way down. I should have denied it. Should have pushed him away and reminded him this was business, strategy, mutual benefit. But I couldn't. 'Cause he was right. Somewhere between the library and the lessons and the nights spent learning the architecture of his empire, I'd stopped seeing him as just the wolf. Started seeing the man beneath. The boy who'd been abandoned by his mother, shaped by a brutal father, trying desperately to be something other than the monster he'd become. This is a mistake, I whispered. Probably. But we're making it anyway. He pulled me to my feet, kissing me with an intensity that stole breath and reason. The question is what we do about it. What do you want to do about it? I want to stop pretending this is just strategy. Stop pretending I'm teaching you to survive and you're learning to destroy me. I want to admit that we're both falling and we're both terrified and we're both making terrible choices that we can't take back. And then what? And then we figure it out. Together. His arms came around me, solid and warm and dangerous. We find your father. We deal with Hawk. We survive whatever's coming. And then we decide if what we have is real or just trauma bonding and mutual destruction. That's a lot of optimism for a man who doesn't believe in happy endings. I don't believe in happy endings. But I'm starting to believe in you. And that's almost the same thing. He kissed me again and I let myself believe it. Let myself imagine a world where the wolf and the ghost could find something real in the darkness. Where love wasn't just leverage and mercy wasn't just manipulation and two broken people could somehow make each other whole. But even as I kissed him back, even as I let myself fall, a cold voice in the back of my mind whispered truth. This is exactly how he manipulates everyone else. Find the leverage point. Offer salvation. Create debt. And you're falling for it just like Anthony fell for it. Just like everyone falls for it. The question is whether Lorenzo knows he's doing it to you. Or whether he's falling too. And neither of you can see that you're just playing out the same patterns he taught you to recognize in others. Pulled back, breathless. I need air. I need to think. Okay. But Era. He caught my hand as I turned to leave. Whatever you're thinking, whatever doubts are spinning through that brilliant mind, talk to me. Don't disappear inside yourself. That's when people make mistakes. What kind of mistakes? The kind where they convince themselves they're alone, that they can't trust anyone, that they're better off making decisions in isolation. His grip tightened slightly. The kind of mistakes my mother made when she decided to leave without fighting for me. The kind I made when I chose my father over her salvation. I'm not your mother. And you're not your father. Aren't we? We're both people who learned that love is a weapon. That vulnerability is dangerous. That the safest choice is always to protect yourself over protecting others. He pulled me back to him. Promise me you won't make decisions alone. Promise me if you're going to break my heart or betray me or decide I'm not worth saving. You'll tell me first. Give me a chance to change your mind. The request was raw, honest, the most vulnerable I'd seen him since he'd shown me his first kill. I promise, I lied. Because I couldn't tell him what I was really thinking. Couldn't admit that I'd been watching him manipulate Anthony and wondering if every tender moment between us was just another form of manipulation. Wondering if he even knew the difference anymore between genuine feeling and strategic performance. Wondering if I knew the difference. Good. He kissed my forehead. Now go. Get some air. Clear your head. I have some calls to make anyway. We're getting close to finding your father's location. Another day or two, and we'll have him. He walked away, leaving me alone in his study with my thoughts and my fears and the terrible certainty that time was running out. In a day or two, I'd have to face my father. Have to hear his side of the story. Have to decide who was telling the truth. Lorenzo or the man who'd raised me. And I had no idea which answer I was hoping for. Chapter 6. The Kiss and the Trap. They found him 2 days later. I was in the library, pretending to read but actually running scenarios in my mind. What I'd say when I saw my father, what questions I'd ask, how I'd know if he was telling the truth. When Lorenzo burst through the door with an energy I'd never seen before. We have him, he said. His eyes bright with Hunter's triumph. Your father. We know where he is. My heart stopped. Where? A safe house on the outskirts of the city. Small place, residential neighborhood. He's been there for at least 3 weeks, maybe longer. One of my informants spotted him yesterday. Older, different hair color, but the facial recognition software confirmed it. It's him, Era. It's Michael Morrison. The name sounded foreign. My father had been Michael Morrison for 40 years before he became a corpse in my mind. Now he was both, the dead man and the living stranger. When do we go? Tonight. After dark. He'll be expecting some kind of move eventually, but we have the element of surprise. He doesn't know we've found him. Lorenzo crossed to where I sat, pulling me to my feet. Are you ready for this? To see him? To hear whatever justification he's built for letting you grieve him for 6 years? No. But I'm going anyway. He studied my face, then nodded. Okay. But remember what we discussed, you observe first. Let me handle the initial confrontation. If he's hostile, if there are weapons, if Hawk is there, I need you to stay back. Stay safe. I'm not going to hide while you confront my father. I'm not asking you to hide. I'm asking you to be smart. Your father is a survivor, Era. He's been playing this game longer than you've been alive. He'll use you, your emotions, your love for him, your need for answers. Don't give him that leverage. The irony wasn't lost on me. Lorenzo warning me about manipulation, about leverage, about not letting emotion compromise strategy. The man who'd spent weeks teaching me those exact tactics now worried I'd fall victim to them. I won't, I promised. Another lie in a growing collection. Because the truth was, I didn't know what I'd do when I saw my father. Didn't know if I'd demand answers or collapse into his arms. Didn't know if I'd feel rage or relief or the horrible combination of both. The rest of the day passed in preparation. Lorenzo's team assembled. Cale and 3 others I'd seen around the penthouse but never spoken to. They moved with military precision, checking weapons, reviewing blueprints of the safe house, discussing approach vectors and exit strategies. I was given a vest, bulletproof, lightweight, and an earpiece so I could hear their communications. Lorenzo wanted me in the second vehicle, arriving after the initial breach. Protected. Removed from the immediate danger. But as the sun set and we prepared to leave, I made my own preparations. I palmed a small knife from Lorenzo's study, the same one he'd once offered me for protection. Tucked it into my boot where the vest wouldn't reveal its outline. Memorized the address of the safe house, just in case I needed to find it on my own. And I made a decision. Whatever I learned tonight, whatever truth my father told or Lorenzo revealed, I would trust my own judgment. Not Lorenzo's. Not my father's. The ghost was done being moved by other people's hands. The safe house was unremarkable. A small ranch home in a neighborhood of similar houses, the kind of place where people minded their own business and didn't notice strangers. A single light burned in the front window. A car in the driveway. Older model, nondescript. My father was in there. Live. Real. After 6 years of believing him dead. He was just behind that door with the peeling paint and the overgrown lawn. We parked 2 blocks away. Lorenzo's team approached on foot, spreading out to cover all exits. I watched through binoculars from the second vehicle, my heart hammering against my ribs. All positions. Lorenzo's voice crackled in my earpiece. Remember, we need him alive. And unharmed if possible. He's got answers we need. They moved in. Professional. Efficient. The front door opened without resistance. Unlocked, as if my father had been expecting visitors. Too easy, my instinct screamed. This is too easy. Then Lorenzo's voice, tight with tension. It's empty. The house is empty. Era, stay in there. I was already moving. Out of the vehicle, running toward the house. My father's name dying on my lips as I burst through the open door. The house was sparsely furnished. Couch, a table, basic kitchen equipment. And on that table a laptop, open and running. Video feed. On the screen, a face I hadn't seen in 6 years. My father. Hello, Era, his recorded voice said through the laptop speakers. If you're watching this, it means Lorenzo Volkov found my safe house. Which means you're probably standing next to him right now. Which means it's time you learned the truth. Lorenzo appeared beside me, weapons still drawn, scanning the room for threats. But there were none. Just the laptop and the video and my father's voice echoing through the empty house. I'm sorry, the recording continued. Sorry for letting you believe I was dead. Sorry for using your grief. Sorry for every moment of pain I caused. But I had no choice, sweetheart. The moment I learned what Volkov really was, what he'd done, I knew I could never stop running until he was dead or I was. Pause it, I said, my voice shaking. Lorenzo hit the spacebar. The video froze on my father's face. Older, as I'd noted in the surveillance photo, but still unmistakably him. Still wearing the expression I remembered from childhood, the one that meant he was about to tell me something important. This is a trap, Lorenzo said. He wanted us to find this place. Wanted us to see this message. The question is why? Play it. I needed to hear. Needed to know what truth my father had built his 6-year plan around. Lorenzo hit play. Volkov told you I came to him for protection, didn't he? My father continued. That I wanted to switch sides, join his organization, betray Castellano for safety. That's the story he's been telling, the one that makes him look like the reasonable party who just needed time to verify my information. My father's expression hardened. It's a lie, Era. I never went to Volkov asking for protection. I went to confront him about what he'd done to your mother. The world tilted. My mother. Dead since I was 8. Cancer, they'd said. Aggressive, untreatable. She'd been gone within 6 months of diagnosis. Your mother didn't die of cancer, my father said, and his voice broke. She was poisoned. Slowly over months. Something undetectable in regular autopsy. Designed to look like natural disease. And I didn't know, didn't suspect, until years later when I found the evidence. Found out who ordered it. Found out why. Lorenzo's hand moved to my shoulder. I shrugged it off, stepping closer to the laptop screen. Your mother worked for the FBI, my father continued. Undercover, embedded in Castellano's organization. She was my handler, that's how we met, fell in love, had you. But her real target was never Castellano. It was his suppliers. The network that moved weapons and drugs and people through Chicago. The network run by. He paused, looking directly into the camera as if he could see me through time and distance. Run by Nikolai Volkov, Lorenzo's father. The name hit like a bullet. Your mother got close. Too close. She had evidence, testimony, everything needed to bring down the entire Volkov operation. But before she could move, before she could make the arrests, she got sick. And by the time I realized it wasn't natural, by the time I found the traces of the poison in her medical files, she was already gone. Tears streamed down my father's recorded face. I spent years gathering proof. Years tracking down the person who'd administered the poison. And I found him. A doctor who worked for Nikolai Volkov, who specialized in making murders look like natural causes. He confessed everything before I killed him. Told me Nikolai ordered the hit personally. And that his son, Lorenzo, had helped identify your mother as a federal agent. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. The room was spinning. Lorenzo Volkov killed your mother, Era. Not directly, he was only 17 at the time. But he's the one who figured out she was FBI. Who told his father. Who set in motion the chain of events that took her from us. I turned to Lorenzo. He was pale, his expression carefully neutral, but I saw something flicker in his eyes. Recognition. Guilt. Truth. You knew, I whispered. You knew who I was. Who my mother was. You knew from the beginning. Era. You knew. The scream tore out of me. Everything bringing me here, teaching me, touching me. All of it was a lie. You knew you killed my mother and you still let me. My hand found the knife in my boot. I had it out and pressed against his throat before either of us fully registered the movement. Lorenzo didn't flinch. Didn't reach for his weapon. Just stood there, my knife at his jugular, meeting my eyes with terrible calm. Yes, he said quietly. I knew. From the moment I ran your background check, saw your mother's maiden name, did the math on dates and locations. I knew Catherine Morrison was your mother. And I knew what my father did to her. What I did to cause it. And you brought me here anyway. Used me. Made me trust you. Made me. My voice broke. Made me fall for you. Knowing you killed my mother. I didn't know how to tell you. Every day I wanted to. Every moment we spent together. I thought this is when I should confess. But I was afraid. Afraid you'd look at me exactly the way you're looking at me now. With hatred. With disgust. With the knowledge that I'm irredeemable. You are irredeemable. The knife pressed harder. A thin line of blood appeared. You're a monster who manipulates and kills and destroys everything you touch. And I was stupid enough to think you were something else. To think we were something else. We were. We are. His hand came up slowly, carefully, to cover mine on the knife. Not pushing it away. Just touching. Connecting. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know what I did. What I set in motion when I told my father about your mother is unforgivable. But everything since you walked into my life has been real, Era. The way I feel about you, the way I've fallen for you, that's not strategy. That's not manipulation. That's just... His voice cracked. That's just me, being human for the first time in 30 years. Being real. With you. How convenient. The monster discovers his humanity with the daughter of the woman he murdered. What a beautiful redemption story. I laughed, bitter and broken. Except it's not redemption. It's just another manipulation. Another way to use my love as leverage against me. If that's what you believe, then do it. He leaned into the knife slightly, increasing the pressure. Cut my throat. Kill me. Avenge your mother. I won't stop you. I won't fight back. If that's what you need, if that's the only justice you can find, take it. My hand shook. One push. One sharp movement. And the wolf would be dead. My mother would be avenged. My father's plan would be complete. But I couldn't move. Because some treacherous part of me still saw the man, not just the monster. Still remembered his hands gentle on my face. His voice raw with confession. The way he'd looked at me like I was salvation instead of destruction. Era. My father's voice from the laptop still playing. I've forgotten about the video. If you're hesitating, if you're not sure you can do it, I understand. He's made you care about him. That's what predators do. They make you invest emotionally so you can't strike when you should. But listen to me, sweetheart. Listen carefully. I lowered the knife slightly, turning toward the screen. Lorenzo Volkov has to die. Not just for your mother. Not just for me. But for everyone he'll hurt if he stays in power. He's his father's son, Era. He'll never stop. Never change. Never be anything other than the wolf who kills without remorse and calls it business. My father leaned closer to the camera. I've given you the truth. Now I'm giving you a choice. Walk away from Volkov. Right now. Leave that house and don't look back. Or. His expression hardened. Finish what you started. Put that knife through his throat and end the Volkov bloodline once and for all. But don't let him convince you that love changes monsters. Doesn't. I tried that with your mother, tried to believe love could make me better than I was. And all it did was get her killed. The video ended. The screen went black. I stood there in the empty safe house, knife in hand, my father's words echoing, Lorenzo's blood on the blade. And no idea which choice would destroy me less. Era, Lorenzo said softly. I can't make this decision for you. I can't tell you I'm worth saving or that killing me would be wrong. But I can tell you one thing. He moved my hand, guiding the knife away from his throat, holding it between us. If you walk away now, your father wins. He'll have successfully driven a wedge between us, turned you into his weapon, used your mother's death as leverage to make you choose him over me. That's what this entire setup was about. Not giving you truth, but giving you a version of truth that serves his purpose. And what's your version? That you didn't really betray my mother. That you were just a poor, misguided teenager. No. My version is that I did betray her. I did tell my father she was FBI. I did set in motion the events that killed her. And I've spent 17 years trying to atone for it. His eyes searched mine. Your mother's operation didn't die with her, Era. It was compromised, yes, but the evidence she gathered. I'm the one who made sure it reached the right people. I'm the one who testified, anonymously, against my own father's network. I'm the one who spent the next decade systematically dismantling everything he built, making sure that the organization that killed your mother didn't survive him. You expect me to believe you became a hero? That you've been working against your father's legacy this whole time? I expect you to believe that guilt is a powerful motivator. That some sins are so deep you spend your entire life trying to balance the scales. He released my hand, stepping back. But you're right about one thing, I am my father's son. I've killed. I've manipulated. I've built power on the bodies of people who stood in my way. I'm not redeemed. I'm just trying, every day, to be something other than what he made me. Kale appeared in the doorway. Boss, we need to move. The video was rigged to send coordinates to an unknown number the moment it finished playing. Someone's coming. Hawk, I said, the pieces clicking together. My father's partner. This whole thing, the empty house, the video confession, it's a trap. To get us here. To get you vulnerable. So Hawk can finish the job. Lorenzo's expression went cold. Predatory. Then let him come. I'm done running from ghosts. No. I grabbed his arm. We leave. Before. The explosion cut off my words. The windows shattered inward, glass and fire and force throwing me backward. I hit the floor hard, my head cracking against something solid. The world became a confused blur of sound and light and pain. Through the ringing in my ears, I heard gunfire. Shouting. Lorenzo's voice, distant but commanding. Get her out. Kale, get her out now. Strong hands hauled me up. Kale, his face grim, half carrying me toward the back door. Behind us, Lorenzo and his men were engaging with something. Shadows moving through smoke. We made it to the vehicle. Kale shoved me into the back seat. His hand coming away bloody from where he'd grabbed my head. You're hit. Stay down. Lorenzo. Boss can handle himself. My job is you. He slammed the door and got behind the wheel, the engine roaring to life. As we pulled away, I looked back through the rear window. The safe house was burning. Figures moved in the smoke. Impossible to tell friend from enemy. And somewhere in that chaos was Lorenzo, fighting Hawk, fighting my father's trap, fighting to survive. I should have felt satisfaction. Vindication. The wolf caught in the snare he deserved. Instead I felt terror. Because I'd made my choice in that house. When I'd lowered the knife. When I'd warned him about Hawk. When I'd grabbed his arm and begged him to run. I'd chosen Lorenzo over my father. I'd chosen the monster over vengeance. And now I had to live with that choice. Assuming either of us lived through the night. Chapter 7. The Orpheum Chase. Kale drove like a man possessed, weaving through side streets, checking mirrors obsessively. My head throbbed where I'd hit the floor. My vision swimming in and out of focus. Blood, my blood, smeared the leather seat. Where are we going? Managed. Secondary safe house. Medical team is already en route. He glanced at me in the rearview mirror. Boss's orders. If anything goes wrong, I get you out first. No matter what. We have to go back. Lorenzo. Boss can handle himself. Has been handling himself since before either of us knew him. But even Kale's confidence sounded strained. He's got Franco and the others. They'll extract, regroup at the main safe house. You don't know that. You didn't see how much explosives they used. How coordinated the attack was. I leaned forward, ignoring the way the movement made my head spin. Kale. We have to go back. Can't. Boss's orders were explicit. He took a sharp turn, checking the mirror again. And we're being followed. Black sedan 3 cars back. Been with us since we left the neighborhood. My stomach dropped. Hawk's people. Probably. Which means getting you to safety is the priority. He pulled out his phone, tossing it to me. Call Franco. Find out if boss made it out. I dialed with shaking hands. Rang. Rang again. On the 4th ring, Franco answered. His voice tight with pain. Kale. It's Era. Where's Lorenzo? Pinned down. 3 hostiles, professional gear. We're in the basement of the safe house. Structural support is holding, but we can't get to the vehicles. Where are you? Secondary location. But we're being followed. Shit. A burst of gunfire crackled through the phone. Listen, don't go to secondary. It's compromised. Hawk's been tracking us, he'll know about that location. You need to. More gunfire. Franco's voice came back strained. You need to go public. Somewhere crowded. Somewhere Hawk can't make a move without witnesses. Where? The Orpheum Theater. There's a gala tonight. Art auction, hundreds of people. Get there, blend in with the crowd. We'll extract you once we clear this situation. What about Lorenzo? I'll keep him alive. A grim promise. You just stay alive until we can reach you. And Era. Franco's voice softened slightly. Boss made his choice when he told me to get you out first. Don't waste it. The line went dead. I relayed the information to Kale. He cursed, a creative string of Russian I'd heard Lorenzo use when he was particularly frustrated, and changed direction. The Orpheum is 15 minutes. We need to lose the tail first. He took another sharp turn, then another, navigating the city like he'd memorized every street. And you need to look presentable. There's a go bag in the trunk. Should have something that fits. How do we access the trunk while moving? We don't. We stop, you change fast, we move again. He pulled into an underground parking structure, the kind attached to upscale shopping centers. Killed the lights and engine, coasting into a dark corner. 2 minutes. Make it fast. The go bag contained a cocktail dress. Black, simple, expensive. Heels that were surprisingly my size. Makeup to cover the bruising on my face. Someone, Lorenzo probably, had planned for this contingency. Had anticipated I might need to disappear into high society at a moment's notice. I changed in the back seat, ignoring Kale's carefully averted eyes, my hands shaking as I zipped up the dress. The knife from Lorenzo's study was still in my boot. I transferred it to a thigh holster hidden under the dress's flowing skirt. How do I look? I asked, finger-combing my hair, smearing concealer over the cut on my forehead. Kale glanced back. Like you belong at a gala. Less like you just survived an explosion. Good enough. We emerged from the parking structure cautiously. No sign of the black sedan. Either we'd lost them or they were hanging back, waiting to see where we'd go. The Orpheum Theater blazed with light and life. Red carpet, paparazzi, elegant people in elegant clothes pretending the world was beautiful instead of burning. I'd walked past this building 100 times during my bartending years, never imagining I'd enter through the front door. I'll stay mobile, Kale said as we approached. Circle the block, watch for threats. You get inside, find the crowd, stay visible. Someone tries something in there, scream. Make a scene. Public pressure is your best protection right now. And if Lorenzo doesn't make it out? Kale's expression was carefully neutral. Then you run. Take the flash drive, take everything you've learned, and you disappear. Boss's orders. I wanted to argue. Wanted to demand we go back, that we find Lorenzo, that we do anything other than hide in a theater while he fought for his life. But I understood the logic. I'd learned it from Lorenzo himself. Sometimes the strategic choice was retreat. Preserve the assets. Live to fight another day. I stepped out of the vehicle, my heels clicking on the pavement, and walked toward the theater like I belonged there. Like I was just another wealthy patron attending just another gala, not a woman whose mother had been murdered and whose father wanted her to murder in return. The lobby was magnificent, all Art Deco grandeur and restored glory. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, walls adorned with posters from productions long past. Hundreds of people milled about with champagne flutes and auction paddles, their conversations a sophisticated buzz. I grabbed a champagne flute from a passing waiter, using it as a prop. Scanned the crowd for threats, for familiar faces, for any sign that Hawk had anticipated this move. And then I saw him. Not Hawk, my father. He stood near the main staircase, dressed in an expensive suit I'd never seen him wear, looking like he belonged among the wealthy elite. Older, grayer, but unmistakably him. And he was watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Our eyes met across the crowded lobby. He didn't smile, didn't wave, just raised his champagne glass in a small salute, then tilted his head toward a side corridor. An invitation. Or a trap. I should have stayed in the crowd. Should have followed Cale's instructions, Franco's orders, Lorenzo's careful contingency planning. Instead, I followed my father into the shadows. The corridor was quieter, lined with photographs from the theater's history. My father stood at the far end, near a door marked Private Staff Only. "Hello, Era," he said as I approached. "I'm glad you got my message. Your message nearly got Lorenzo killed. That was the point." He looked me up and down, taking in the dress, the bruising I couldn't quite hide. "But you're here, which means he's not dead yet. Which means we still have time to finish this." "I'm not finishing anything. I just want the truth. The real truth, not whatever version you fed me through that video." The video was true. Every word. Lorenzo Volkov identified your mother as FBI. His father had her poisoned. And he spent 17 years pretending to atone while building an empire on the same violence that killed her. He said he testified against his father. That he dismantled the network. He lied. My father's voice was flat. Oh, he testified. Under immunity, in exchange for being allowed to take over his father's organization, legitimately. He didn't dismantle anything. He just rebranded it. Made it cleaner, more corporate, harder to prosecute. But the violence, the exploitation, the murders, they never stopped. He just got better at hiding them. You want me to believe you're the hero in this story? You who faked your own death and used my grief as cover for 6 years of planning. I never said I was a hero. I said I was a father who couldn't save his wife but could avenge her. He stepped closer. And I said I was a man who'd do anything to protect his daughter from making the same mistakes I did. You've fallen for him, haven't you? Lorenzo. Despite everything you know, despite everything he's done, you've convinced yourself he's redeemable. I haven't convinced myself of anything. I'm trying to figure out who's lying, you or him. And right now, I'm thinking it might be both of you. My father smiled sadly. Smart girl. Always were too clever for your own good. Yes, we're both lying. We're both using you. The difference is, I'm using you to destroy a monster. He's using you to protect himself from the consequences of being one. What do you want from me? I want you to finish what you started in that safe house. You had a knife to his throat. You should have used it. His expression hardened. But since you didn't, we moved to plan B. Which is, you're going to help me trap him. Really trap him. Not the half measure tonight that he managed to escape. You're going to use what he's taught you, about his organization, his weaknesses, his security, and you're going to help me take him down. Why would I do that? Because I'm going to give you something Lorenzo never will, the complete truth about your mother's death. Including the part he didn't tell you. My father pulled out a flash drive. Everything's on here. Testimony from the doctor before I killed him. Evidence Lorenzo destroyed. Proof that he didn't just identify your mother. He personally delivered the poison that killed her. The world stopped. You're lying. I wish I was. He held out the flash drive. Lorenzo has been feeding you the version where he's tragic and guilty but ultimately salvageable. The truth is uglier. He was 17, yes. But he wasn't a child manipulated by his father. He was an active participant. He knew what the poison would do. He watched it work. And when your mother begged him, Era on her deathbed, to tell her why, he just walked away. Didn't say a word. Didn't show mercy. Just let her die knowing he'd betrayed her. I don't believe you. Then look at the evidence. It's all there. Hospital records, the doctor's confession, even a video. His voice dropped. Your mother recorded her last days. Wanted you to know what happened if she didn't survive. I've kept it hidden for 6 years because I couldn't bear to watch it, couldn't bear to remember. But you deserve to see. You deserve to know what Lorenzo really is. I stared at the flash drive. Such a small thing. Containing evidence that could either confirm my father's story or prove he was lying. Behind me, footsteps echoed in the corridor. I turned to see a man approaching. Middle-aged, unremarkable features, the kind of face you'd forget immediately. Except I'd seen this face before. In Marco's files. In Lorenzo's surveillance photos. Silas Hawke, I breathed. He smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Miss Morrison. Or should I say Miss Clark? You've gone by so many names. Ghost according to Volkov. Era to your friends. Catherine's daughter to those of us who remember. You're the one who's been orchestrating all this. The hit on Lorenzo, the bomb, the necessary elimination of a problematic element, yes. Hawke spoke with the mild tone of someone discussing the weather. Lorenzo Volkov is bad for business. His father was cruel but predictable. Lorenzo is worse. He's cruel and intelligent. He's been consolidating power, eliminating rivals, making it very difficult for those of us who prefer a more democratic distribution of criminal enterprise. So you recruited my father. Your father recruited himself. Came to me years ago with proof of what the Volkovs did to his wife. I provided resources, connections, expertise. In exchange, he agreed to help me remove Lorenzo and destabilize his organization. Mutually beneficial arrangement. My father moved beside Hawke. Two men united by a common enemy. Era, I know this looks bad. But everything I've done, every lie, every manipulation, has been to get us to this moment. You standing here with the truth. Lorenzo weakened and exposed. The opportunity to end the Volkov bloodline forever. You want me to kill him. That's why you've been setting all this up. Not just to destroy him, but to turn me into the weapon that does it. I want you to have a choice I never had. When your mother was dying, I was helpless. Couldn't stop it, couldn't save her. Couldn't even avenge her because the Volkovs were too powerful. But you've infiltrated his organization. You've learned his secrets. You've gotten him to trust you, maybe even love you. You have access I never had. Power I never wielded. My father's eyes were pleading. Please, Era. Finish this. For your mother. For every person Lorenzo has hurt. For yourself. The gala's noise filtered down the corridor. Laughter, music, the clink of glasses. Normal people living normal lives, unaware that in this darkened hallway, a daughter was being asked to murder the man she'd fallen for. And if I say no? Yes. Hawke's expression didn't change, but something cold flickered in his eyes. Then your father and I proceed without you. Lorenzo dies tonight. Messily, publicly, in a way that implicates his entire organization. And you become collateral damage. The girlfriend who knew too much. The witness who can't be allowed to testify. You'd kill me. I'd regret the necessity. But yes. Hawke pulled out a gun, casual, not quite threatening but definitely present. This is the moment of choice, Miss Morrison. Help us kill Lorenzo or die alongside him. Either way, the wolf meets his end tonight. Behind them, the door to the theater's backstage opened. Lorenzo stepped through, blood on his shirt, his weapon drawn. Franco behind him looking equally battered. Era, get away from them, Lorenzo commanded. His gun trained on Hawke. Don't move, Hawke countered. His own weapon now pointed at my father's head. She moves, Morrison dies. You shoot me, Morrison dies. The only way this ends without bloodshed is if everyone puts their weapons down and we talk like civilized people. There's nothing civilized about you, Lorenzo said, but he didn't lower his gun. Lorenzo. My voice cut through the standoff. Is it true? Did you deliver the poison that killed my mother? His expression shuttered. Era. Yes or no? Did you personally deliver the poison? The silence stretched. In it I heard my answer. I was 17, Lorenzo said finally. My father told me it was medicine for an informant's daughter. Said we were protecting a family. I didn't know. I swear to God, I didn't know it was poison until weeks later when your mother was already dead and my father explained what I'd done. What I'd been complicit in. You knew she was FBI though. You identified her. Yes, I did. And I've spent every day since trying to atone for that mistake. But you never told me. Never admitted you'd been the delivery mechanism. You let me think you were just a kid who'd talked to his father, not the person who literally handed over the instrument of my mother's death. Because I was afraid you'd look at me exactly the way you're looking at me now. His voice cracked. Like I'm irredeemable. Like everything between us was built on lies. It was built on lies. The words exploded out of me. You let me fall for you knowing you killed my mother. You taught me, touched me, made me trust you. All while hiding the worst thing you'd ever done. I was trying to find the right time. There is no right time to admit you murdered someone's mother. I turned to my father. Give me the flash drive. My father's expression flickered between triumph and concern. Era, what are you? Give it to me. Now. He handed it over. I held it up, letting Lorenzo see it. This contains the full truth. Everything. The doctor's confession, hospital records, video from my mother's last days. I'm going to watch it. All of it. And then I'm going to decide who deserves to die. You or Lorenzo, or both of you. That's not a decision for you to make alone, Lorenzo said desperately. Whatever's on that drive, we can watch it together. Figure out what's real, what's manipulated. No. You've both been manipulating me since the beginning. You, I pointed at Lorenzo, brought me into your world knowing you killed my mother. And you, I pointed at my father, faked your death and used my grief to turn me into your weapon. You're both liars. You're both murderers. And I'm done being moved around like a chess piece. I looked at Hawk. How long until the police arrive? He checked his watch. Anonymous tip was called in 3 minutes ago. Theater shooting, multiple hostels. They'll be here in 5 to 7 minutes. Good. I backed toward the exit, keeping all 3 men in sight. Here's what's going to happen. Lorenzo, you're going to walk away. Take Franco, get your people out, disappear before the police arrive. Father, you and Hawk are going to do the same. And I'm going to take this evidence somewhere neutral, somewhere none of you can reach me, and I'm going to decide what justice looks like. Era. Both my father and Lorenzo said simultaneously. No. You don't get to era me. Either of you. You've both lied, both manipulated, both used me. Now I'm taking control. I held up the flash drive. I'll contact you both when I've made my decision. Until then, if any of you try to find me, if any of you send men after me, I release everything. Every file, every secret, every piece of evidence I've collected over the past month. I'll destroy both your organizations, send you all to prison, and walk away. You can't survive alone, Lorenzo said. Hawk will hunt you. I'm a ghost. I've been invisible for 6 years. I can do it again. I looked at Hawk. And if you come after me, Mr. Hawk, I'll make sure every detail of your operation gets leaked to every federal agency that's ever wanted you. You'll spend the rest of your short life in a maximum security prison. That clear enough? Hawk studied me for a long moment. Then he smiled, genuine this time. Very clear. And very impressive. You've learned well from both sides. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Time's up, I said. Everyone leaves. Different directions. And nobody follows me. Lorenzo took a step toward me. Franco grabbed his arm, holding him back. Boss, we need to move. Era, please. Goodbye, Lorenzo. I turned to my father. I'll contact you when I'm ready. Don't try to find me. Then I ran. Through the backstage, past confused stagehands, out a service exit into an alley. I shed the heels, running barefoot on cold pavement, the flash drive clutched in my hand like a lifeline or a bomb. Behind me, I heard shouts, engines, the chaos of multiple people trying to escape before the police lockdown. But no one followed. They'd all chosen survival over pursuit. I ran until my lungs burned, until I was blocks away from the Orpheum, until I was lost in the city's nighttime sprawl. Then I stopped in the shadow of a closed shop, catching my breath, and looked at the flash drive. The truth about my mother's death. The evidence that would damn Lorenzo or exonerate him. The answer to who deserved to die. But did I really want to know? Did I really want to watch my mother's last days, see her suffering, hear her pleas? Or did I already know enough? Had I already decided, in that moment when I lowered the knife, that Lorenzo deserved something other than death? The ghost stood alone in the Chicago night, holding the power to destroy 2 empires, and had absolutely no idea what to do with it. Chapter 8. The Gala. I found refuge in the last place anyone would think to look, my old apartment. The one Lorenzo had supposedly cleared out, the one I'd believed was gone forever. But when I climbed the fire escape to the 3rd floor, the window to my bedroom was still unlocked. The security habit I'd never broken, always leaving myself an emergency exit. Inside, the apartment was exactly as I'd left it. Furniture dusty but intact. My clothes still in the closet. The photograph of my mother, the real one, not the copy I'd kept in my bag, still on the nightstand. Lorenzo had lied about clearing it out. Had kept it intact, like he'd known I might need to run back to something familiar. Like he'd been giving me an escape route even while trying to keep me trapped. The realization made something twist in my chest. Even his manipulations had mercy in them. I locked the door, wedged a chair under the handle, and collapsed onto my bed. The flash drive sat on the nightstand beside my mother's photo. 2 artifacts. 2 versions of truth. I didn't watch it that night. Couldn't bring myself to face whatever was on there in the dark, alone, with adrenaline still singing through my veins. Instead I slept. Dreamless, exhausted sleep that felt like falling into a well with no bottom. When I woke, sunlight streamed through the dirty windows. My phone, the burner I'd taken from Lorenzo's go bag, showed 17 missed calls. 10 from Lorenzo. 7 from my father. Neither of them had followed me. They'd kept their word. I made coffee on the ancient stovetop, the ritual of it grounding. Then I sat at my small kitchen table, opened my laptop, and inserted the flash drive. The directory showed folders labeled by date. Hospital records, doctor's testimony, and 1 video file. Catherine and MP4. My hand hovered over the video. Once I watched it, I couldn't unwatch it. Couldn't unhear whatever my mother had wanted me to know. Click play. The video quality was grainy, shot on what looked like a phone camera. My mother lay in a hospital bed, so thin I barely recognized her. The cancer, the poison masquerading as cancer, had ravaged her body. But her eyes were alert, focused. "Era, baby," she said, her voice weak but determined. "If you're watching this, it means I'm gone. It means the people who poisoned me succeeded. And it means your father kept his promise to show you the truth when you were old enough to handle it." She paused, gathering strength. "I don't have much time, so I'll be direct. I was FBI. Undercover in Castellano's organization for 3 years. Your father knew. He was my handler before we fell in love, before we decided to get out and start a real life together. We thought we'd escape. Thought we could be a normal family. We were wrong." She coughed, a wet, painful sound. When she spoke again, her voice was raspier. "Someone figured out who I was. Someone smart enough to see through my cover, thorough enough to verify it. And instead of killing me quickly, they decided to make it look natural. Slow poison administered over months, designed to mimic aggressive cancer." My mother's hand reached off camera, pulling something into frame. "Photo." Pause the video, zooming in. The photo showed a young man, maybe 17 or 18, standing beside an older man who could only be Nikolai Volkov. The resemblance was unmistakable. And the younger man was Lorenzo. But it was what Lorenzo was holding that made my blood run cold. Medical case. The kind used to transport temperature-sensitive materials. "That photo was taken by a hospital security camera," my mother continued. 3 weeks before my diagnosis. The young man is Lorenzo Volkov, Nikolai's eldest son. He delivered a medicine sample to my doctor, a doctor who, we later learned, was on the Volkov payroll. That sample was the poison that killed me. I paused the video again, my hands shaking. This was it. The proof my father had promised. Lorenzo had physically delivered the poison. Had been the mechanism of my mother's death. But something felt wrong. I rewound, watching the timestamp on the security footage. Then I pulled up the hospital records from another folder, cross-referencing dates. The photo was dated 3 weeks before my mother's diagnosis. But the hospital records showed she'd started experiencing symptoms, legitimate symptoms that preceded the poisoning, 6 weeks before that photo was taken. Which meant the poison Lorenzo delivered couldn't have been what initially made her sick. I dug deeper into the files, reading through the doctor's confession. And there it was, buried in the testimony. Nikolai Volkov ordered me to poison Catherine Morrison. I administered the first doses through her regular medication, switching her antibiotics for capsules laced with thallium. When Lorenzo delivered the medicine sample, I'd already been poisoning her for months. The sample he brought was saline solution, harmless. I told Nikolai it was the poison, let him think his son had done it, to bind the boy to the crime, to make him complicit. But Lorenzo never delivered poison. He delivered nothing. My father had edited the video, had cut off my mother's message before she could explain the full context, had used her dying words to craft a lie that would make me hate Lorenzo. I fast-forwarded through the video, looking for the part my father had removed. And there it was. My mother's message continued. The boy Lorenzo he didn't know. I saw him a week after that delivery. Saw him in the hospital visiting his own father for some minor procedure. He was in the hallway outside my room. I was barely conscious, but I heard him talking to a nurse, asking about me, saying he'd heard there was an FBI agent in the hospital and wanting to help if he could. My mother's expression softened with something like pity. The nurse told him I was the one, and I saw his face change. Saw him realize what he'd done, what he'd been tricked into doing. He left. Came back an hour later with a man in a suit. Lawyer. And they went straight to the hospital administrator. She smiled, sad and tired. Your father never told you this part. Never told you that Lorenzo Volkov is the reason the FBI finally got the evidence they needed against his own father. He provided testimony, documents, everything. He destroyed his own family to try to save me. It was too late. The poison had already done too much damage. But he tried, Era. That boy tried to fix what he'd unknowingly broken. The video continued. My mother talking about how she'd asked my father to tell me the truth someday. The full truth. Not the edited version that served his need for revenge. Don't become what we fought against, she said, looking directly into the camera. Don't let hate make you a weapon. Lorenzo Volkov was 17 and manipulated by a monster. He's not responsible for what his father made him do. If he's alive when you see this, if he survived his father's legacy, judge him by who he became, not by what he was forced to be. The video ended. I sat in my kitchen, staring at the blank screen, my entire understanding of the past month shattering and reforming. Lorenzo hadn't lied. He'd been telling me the truth, or as much truth as he could without destroying what we'd built. He'd been guilty of being manipulated, of being 17 and trusting his father, of delivering what he thought was medicine. But he wasn't my mother's killer. My father was the liar. Had edited the video, hidden the evidence, crafted a narrative that would turn me into his weapon against Lorenzo. And I'd almost fallen for it. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. The gala is tonight. Museum of Contemporary Art. Fundraiser for children's hospitals. Lorenzo will be there. He's a major donor, can't miss it without drawing suspicion. If you want to end this, if you want your revenge, that's your chance. He'll be vulnerable, surrounded by witnesses, unable to run. Perfect opportunity. Still trying to orchestrate Lorenzo's death. Another text, this one from my father. I know you've watched the video. I know what you're thinking. That I lied, that I manipulated you. You're right. I did. Because killing Lorenzo is the only way to ensure he never hurts anyone else. The only way to end the Volkov legacy. Please, Era. Finish this. For your mother. For yourself. For everyone he'll destroy if he lives. And then finally a text from Lorenzo. I know you need space. I know you're processing everything. But please, before you make your decision, before you do whatever you're planning, meet me tonight. One conversation. Face to face. No weapons, no threats, no manipulation. Just you and me and the truth. Whatever you decide after, I'll accept. But give me one chance to explain. The gala at MCA 8 p.m. I'll be waiting. 3 invitations. 3 versions of the same event. Hawk wanted me there to kill Lorenzo. My father wanted me there to avenge my mother. Lorenzo wanted me there to, what? Plead for his life. Confess more sins. Try to convince me he was worth saving. I looked at my mother's photo. At the woman who'd fought against monsters and paid with her life. Who'd asked me in her final message not to become what she'd fought against. And I made my decision. The Museum of Contemporary Art glittered with wealth and prestige. The gala was black tie exclusive, the kind of event where Chicago's elite gathered to see and be seen while pretending they cared about sick children. I wore a dress I'd bought that afternoon with cash from Lorenzo's go bag. Deep emerald green, elegant but not flashy, with pockets deep enough to hide the flash drive and the knife I'd carried since this all began. Security at the entrance was tight, but my fake credentials, created using one of Lorenzo's identities I'd memorized, got me through. Inside, the museum was transformed. String quartet playing in the corner. Sculptures. Champagne flowing like water. Art on the walls that probably cost more than most people made in a lifetime. And there, near a particularly ugly piece of modern sculpture, stood Lorenzo. He looked exhausted. The fight at the safe house had left marks. A healing cut on his cheek, the suggestion of bruises under his expertly applied concealer. But he was impeccably dressed, playing the role of legitimate businessman and philanthropist with practiced ease. Our eyes met across the room. He didn't smile, didn't move, just watched me with an expression I couldn't quite read. I crossed the room slowly, accepting a champagne flute I didn't plan to drink, nodding at strangers who didn't know they were watching a confrontation that would decide a man's fate. "You came," Lorenzo said when I finally stood before him. "Did you doubt I would?" "Yes. I thought you'd decided I wasn't worth the conversation. That you'd made your choice and I was already dead in your mind. I watched my mother's video. The full version. Not the edited one my father tried to feed me." Something flickered in his eyes. Hope maybe. Or just relief that I knew the truth. And you're not my mother's killer. You were a tool, not the architect. A victim of your father's manipulation. Not an active participant in murder. Does that matter to you? Does the technicality of innocent intent change what happened? I considered the question. I don't know. But it changes what happens next. Around us, the gala continued. Laughter, music, the clink of glasses. Normal people living normal lives, unaware that in the space between the sculpture and the champagne table, justice was being weighed. "I should hate you," I said quietly. "Should hate you for not telling me the full truth sooner. For letting me fall for you while hiding your connection to my mother's death. For being a Volkov. But you don't." "I should. But I don't." I met his eyes. "I'm so angry at you, Lorenzo. Furious that you manipulated me, that you kept secrets, that you're exactly the kind of man my mother fought against. But I'm also," the words caught in my throat, "I'm also in love with you. And I hate myself for it. Hate that I can see everything you are and still want to choose you over justice." His hand came up, almost touching my face but not quite. "So what do you choose?" "I choose the truth. Complete, unvarnished truth. I choose transparency over manipulation, honesty over strategy." I pulled out the flash drive. "This contains everything. My mother's real message. The doctor's full confession. Evidence that exonerates you and damns my father for editing the truth. I'm going to give it to the FBI. Let them sort out who's guilty and who's not." Lorenzo's expression shifted to alarm. That file will expose my entire organization. Everything I've built, everyone I've protected. It'll all come crashing down. I'll go to prison for the rest of my life." "I know. And you're doing it anyway. I'm doing it because it's the only way to break the cycle. The only way to ensure no more mothers die. No more children are forced to become weapons. No more people like us are trapped between revenge and love. I held up the flash drive. This is justice. Not the kind either of us wanted. Not the kind that feels satisfying. Just the kind that's true. You'll destroy me. Yes. But I'll destroy my father too. And Hawk. And everyone else who's been playing games with people's lives. I looked at him directly. That's the price of truth, Lorenzo. Everyone pays. Including you. Including me. What happens to you when you hand over that file? You're complicit now. You've been living in my organization, learning its secrets. You'll go to prison too. Maybe. Or maybe I'll get immunity for cooperating. Or maybe I'll run, become the ghost again. Disappear into a life where I don't have to carry the weight of choosing between my mother's memory and the man I love. I smiled sadly. Either way, this ends tonight. Lorenzo was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone, typed something and showed me the screen. A message to Franco. Evacuate everyone. Full dispersal protocol. Burn everything. It's over. What are you doing? Yes. I'm letting you win. He put the phone away. If you're going to destroy my empire, I'm not going to make you do it with my people's blood on your hands. I'm disbanding it first. Sending everyone away with severance packages, new identities, fresh starts. By the time the FBI acts on that file, there'll be nothing left to find except me. Why? Because you're right. The cycle has to break. And if I have to be the one who falls to break it, if my life is the price of ensuring no more children grow up the way I did, the way you did, then that's a price I'll pay. He stepped closer, close enough that I could smell his cologne, see the exhaustion in his eyes. I love you, Era Morrison. Completely. Destructively. In ways that are probably not healthy or sane. And I would have spent my whole life protecting you, corrupting you, turning you into something dark enough to survive in my world. He touched my face, finally, his palm warm against my cheek. But I love you enough to let you destroy me instead. To let you choose justice over me. To let you be the woman your mother wanted you to be instead of the woman I was shaping you into. Tears burned my eyes. I don't want to destroy you. I know. But you're going to anyway. Because that's what love looks like when it's real instead of manipulated. It means choosing what's right even when it costs you everything you want. Behind him I saw movement. My father entering the gala. Hawk beside him. Both scanning the crowd, both looking for me. Lorenzo saw my expression change. They're here. Yes. Are you going to let them kill me? Before the FBI can arrest me? No. I pulled out my phone, dialing 911. I'm going to let the law handle all of you. The way my mother would have wanted. I pressed send as my father spotted us. Saw his expression shift from determination to horror as he realized what I was doing. FBI, multiple suspects, Museum of Contemporary Art Gala, I said into the phone. Lorenzo Volkov, Michael Morrison, Silas Hawke. All present. I have evidence of organized crime, murder conspiracy, and attempted assassination. Send units immediately. Hung up. Looked at Lorenzo. You have maybe 5 minutes to run. To disappear before they arrive. You can still. No. He took my hand. I'm done running. Done hiding. Done building empires on other people's suffering. He smiled, sad and genuine. Besides, where would I go? The only thing that made this life bearable was you. Without you it's just darkness. Prison might actually be more honest. My father was pushing through the crowd now. Hawk had disappeared. Probably already running, already activating whatever escape plan a ghost like him had prepared. But my father kept coming. His hand reaching into his jacket. A gun. He had a gun at a charity gala. Lorenzo. I shoved him aside as my father's weapon cleared his jacket. The gunshot was deafening in the elegant space. Screams. Panic. People diving for cover. I felt something hot punch through my side. Looked down to see blood spreading across the emerald dress. Looked up to see my father's expression shift from determination to horror. Era! Both Lorenzo and my father moved at once. Lorenzo catching me as I fell. My father standing frozen, the gun dropping from nerveless fingers. I wasn't aiming for. My father's voice broke. Baby, I'm sorry, I was trying to. Get away from her. Lorenzo's voice was a roar. He'd pulled his own weapon, training it on my father while simultaneously trying to staunch my bleeding. Franco. Medic. Now. The world was getting fuzzy around the edges. I heard sirens. The thunder of police rushing in. And I felt Lorenzo's hands, gentle despite the violence around us, holding pressure on my wound. Stay with me, he whispered. Please, Era. Stay with me. Don't leave me. Don't. The flash drive, I managed. Make sure they get it. I don't give a damn about the flash drive. Care about you. You're going to survive this. You have to survive this. My father was being tackled by security, screaming my name, screaming apologies, looking every bit the broken man he'd become. And Lorenzo, the wolf, the monster, the man I'd been sent to destroy. He held me like I was the only thing in the world that mattered. His tears falling on my face as he begged me to hold on. Ironic, I whispered. Blood on my lips. I was supposed to kill you. But I think I saved you instead. You did. You saved me. From myself. From my father's legacy. From everything I thought I had to be. He pressed his forehead to mine. Now let me save you. Please. Stay alive. Give us a chance to figure out what we are when we're not drowning in revenge and secrets. What are we? I asked, my vision dimming. I don't know. But I want to find out. I want. The world went black before I heard what he wanted. Epilogue. The ghost returns. 6 months later. The cafe overlooked the ocean, a small establishment perched on the edge of a coastal town whose name most people couldn't pronounce. The kind of place people came to disappear. Retirees seeking peace, artists seeking inspiration, ghosts seeking redemption. I wiped down the espresso machine, the routine of it grounding. The scar on my side pulled slightly, a reminder of the night everything changed. The night I was shot by my father while trying to save the man I'd been sent to destroy. The bullet had missed anything vital, but the recovery had been long. 3 weeks in the hospital under FBI protection. 2 months of physical therapy. Another month of testimony, depositions, interviews with prosecutors building cases against everyone involved. Lorenzo Volkov had been arrested that night at the gala. Charged with racketeering, money laundering, conspiracy. The evidence I'd provided, combined with his own confession and his decision to disband his organization, had ensured a conviction. 10 years in a minimum security federal prison. Eligible for parole in 7. My father had gotten 25 years. Attempted murder of his own daughter. Conspiracy to commit murder, falsifying evidence. The edited video I'd discovered became Exhibit A in proving his manipulation. He'd written me letters from prison. 17 of them. I'd burned 16 without reading them. The 17th sat in my bag, still sealed. Silas Hawke had vanished. The FBI was still searching, but ghosts knew how to stay invisible. I suspected he'd reappear eventually. Men like him always did. But for now, the threat was neutralized. And me. I'd taken a deal. Immunity for testimony. Witness protection. A new identity in a new town where no one knew that the quiet barista who made excellent cappuccinos was actually Era Morrison, the woman who'd brought down 2 criminal empires and broken her own heart in the process. The bell above the cafe door chimed. I looked up from the espresso machine, my practiced smile already in place, then froze. Lorenzo stood in the doorway. Not in prison. Not in orange jumpsuit. In civilian clothes. Jeans, a simple shirt, a jacket against the coastal wind. Thinner than I remembered. Harder. But unmistakably him. You're supposed to be in prison, I said, my voice not quite steady. Early release. Good behavior. cooperation with ongoing investigations, first-time offender. He moved into the cafe slowly, like approaching a wild animal. Plus, I had an excellent lawyer who argued that I'd voluntarily disbanded my organization and provided evidence against higher-level threats. The judge was persuaded. You bought your way out. I earned my way out. There's a difference. He stopped at the counter, those winter-gray eyes finding mine. But yes, having resources helps. Even in prison. We stared at each other across the espresso machine. 6 months. 6 months since I'd seen him, touched him, heard his voice outside of nightmares and memories. How did you find me? Yes. I'm very good at finding ghosts. Always have been. He smiled slightly. Also, the FBI agent who helped relocate you owed me a favor from years ago. He gave me the location. Against protocol, but... He shrugged. Some debts supersede regulations. You shouldn't be here. Witness protection means no contact with criminals from my past. No. But I'm not a criminal anymore, Era. No organization. No empire. Just a man who served his time and is trying to figure out what comes next. He leaned against the counter. Coffee. Black. And the truth about whether you hate me. My hands moved automatically, preparing his coffee. The muscle memory of bartending translated easily to barista work. I don't hate you. But you don't love me anymore either. I set the cup in front of him. I never stopped loving you. That's the problem. He picked up the coffee, taking a sip. Good espresso. You've always had skilled hands. Lorenzo. I'm not here to drag you back into darkness, he interrupted gently. I'm not here to rebuild what we had or tempt you into compromising your fresh start. I'm here because I promised myself that if I survived prison, if I made it out with any part of my soul intact, I'd find you and tell you something. What? Thank you. His voice was raw, honest. Thank you for saving my life in that club. Thank you for seeing me as something other than the wolf. Thank you for destroying my empire instead of letting me destroy you. Thank you for... He stopped, collecting himself. Thank you for loving me even when I didn't deserve it. You gave me something I'd never had before. Hope that I could be something other than my father's son. Tears burned my eyes. You're welcome. But Lorenzo, I can't. We can't. I know. I'm not asking for anything. I just needed you to know that the past 6 months I've been different. Really different. I've been teaching other inmates to read. Mediating conflicts. Using what I know about manipulation and power to de-escalate instead of escalate. The guards hate me because I'm too good at organizing peaceful protests. The warden calls me the most dangerous prisoner he's ever had because I make everyone else think critically. Despite everything, I laughed. You're organizing inmates. Someone has to. The system is broken, Era. I spent 6 months inside and saw things that would horrify you. Men who should never have been locked up. Men who are trapped by poverty and circumstance, not malice. He paused. I've been trying to fix it from the inside. One conversation at a time. One mediation at a time. It's not redemption. But it's something. That's good. I'm proud of you. Are you? He searched my face. Because I'm doing it for the wrong reasons. I'm not doing it because I suddenly developed a conscience or because I believe in justice. I'm doing it because every time I help someone, every time I use my skills for something other than building power, I imagine you watching. And I imagine you being less ashamed of what I am. My throat tightened. I was never ashamed of you. Angry, yes. Hurt, definitely. But never ashamed. You should have been. I was a monster who dressed up in expensive suits and called himself legitimate. You saw through that. Saw what I really was. And you chose to destroy the monster instead of becoming one yourself. He set down his coffee cup. That's what real strength looks like, Era. Not the kind I had, forcing people to bend to your will. But your kind. Standing in the fire and refusing to let it make you cruel. A customer entered the cafe. An elderly woman who came every morning for her latte. I served her on autopilot, my mind still reeling from Lorenzo's presence, his words, the fact that he was here and real and looking at me like I was still something precious. After the woman settled at her usual table, I turned back to Lorenzo. What happens now? Now I leave. Go back to Chicago, finish my parole, continue working with the prison reform organization that's hired me as a consultant. I'm using everything I know about the criminal justice system, from both sides, to help draft legislation. Slow work. Frustrating. Nothing like the power I used to have. But he smiled. It's real. Matters. And it's something your mother would have approved of, I think. The mention of my mother made my breath catch. Have you been to her grave? Every week. I go every week and I tell her about the work I'm doing. The men I'm helping. The system I'm trying to change from inside. I don't know if she can hear me. Don't know if forgiveness is possible beyond death. But I try. Every week. I try to be the man she thought I could be when she saw that 17-year-old kid who'd been manipulated by his father. I came around the counter, standing in front of him. Close enough to touch. She would have liked what you're becoming. Would have respected it. And you? Do you respect it? Yes. But that doesn't mean. I know. He reached out, his finger brushing a strand of hair from my face. The touch was feather-light, reverent. You've built a life here. Good life. Safe, peaceful, honest. I won't ask you to give that up for me. Won't ask you to risk being pulled back into the darkness. You've earned your light, Era. Your freedom. Your chance to be something other than a ghost. Then why come here? Why risk both our peace? Because I needed to see you one more time. Needed to know if. He stopped, struggling with words. If the love I felt was real or just trauma bonding and shared danger. If you were as beautiful and brave and brilliant as I remembered. Or if 6 months had turned you into a fantasy I couldn't live up to. And you're more beautiful, more brave, more real than any fantasy. His hand dropped. But you're also free. And that's more important than what I feel. So I'm going to finish my coffee, thank you for the conversation, and walk out that door. And I'm not coming back unless you ask me to. Lorenzo. 1 year. He said it firmly, like making a decision. Give yourself 1 year in this new life. See if you can be happy without me. See if the love fades or if it's something real enough to survive time and distance and healing. And if, at the end of that year, you still feel something, if you still think about me, still wonder if we could be something in the light instead of just the darkness, you know where to find me. Chicago. Working with the prison reform office. Living in a small apartment that doesn't have a view. Being normal. Being human. And if I never come, then I'll know you chose yourself. And I'll be happy for you. Sad but happy. Because at least one of us escaped. He drained his coffee, set down cash that was 3 times the price. Goodbye, Era Morrison. Thank you for seeing me. For saving me. For destroying me so I could become something worth being. He walked toward the door. My heart was a hammer in my chest. Every instinct screamed to call him back, to run after him, to not let him disappear again. But I stayed silent. 'Cause he was right. I needed time. Needed to know if what I felt was love or just the echo of trauma. Needed to prove to myself that I could be whole without him. The bell chimed as he left. I stood there for a long moment, staring at the empty doorway. Then I looked down at the cash he'd left. $300. And underneath it, a note in his precise handwriting. My love is like a fever, longing still. But I'm learning that real love means wanting your healing more than I want your presence. Take your time. Take your life. Take your freedom. I'll be here when, if you're ready. L. Beneath that, an address. Phone number. An invitation, not a demand. I folded the note carefully, tucking it into my apron pocket. Then I returned to the espresso machine, to the rhythm of my new life, to the peace I'd fought so hard to achieve. But that night, lying in my small apartment above the cafe, listening to the ocean waves, I thought about Lorenzo. About the man who'd been a monster and was learning to be human. About the love that had started in darkness and was trying to find its way to light. And I thought about my mother's final message. Judge him by who he became, not by what he was forced to be. Lorenzo was becoming someone worth judging. Someone worth maybe forgiving. But not yet. Not today. Had a year. A year to heal. A year to be sure. A year to become fully myself before I decided whether to let anyone else back in. The ghost had her freedom. The question was whether she'd choose to haunt the wolf again, or whether this time they'd both stay in the light. 1 year later. The prison reform office in Chicago was smaller than I'd imagined. A converted warehouse space with exposed brick and second-hand furniture, filled with people who looked more like activists than bureaucrats. And there, at a desk near the back, sitting in front of a computer with reading glasses I'd never seen him wear, was Lorenzo. He looked up as I entered. Our eyes met across the crowded office. He didn't smile. Didn't stand. Just removed his glasses slowly, setting them down with careful precision. "Hello, ghost," he said softly. "Hello, wolf." I crossed the office, weaving between desks and conversations, until I stood in front of him. A year. It had been a full year since that morning in the cafe. A year of therapy, of healing, of learning who I was outside of revenge and secrets and impossible choices. A year of knowing with growing certainty that what I felt for Lorenzo was real. "You came," he said. "I came. Why? Because I spent a year trying to stop thinking about you. Trying to convince myself that what we had was just trauma and danger and Stockholm Syndrome dressed up as love." I pulled out the note he'd left, worn now from being carried for 12 months. "It didn't work. I still think about you every day. Still wonder if we could be something real, something healthy, something built in light instead of darkness. And did you find your answer? I don't know. But I want to try to find out." I held out my hand. "So here's my proposition. We start over. No secrets. No manipulation. No leverage or power games. Just two people who survived hell and are trying to figure out if they can build heaven together." He looked at my outstretched hand for a long moment. Then he took it, his grip warm and solid and absolutely certain. "Deal," he said. "But I should warn you, I'm really boring now. I work long hours doing paperwork. I live in a 1-bedroom apartment with terrible plumbing. I spend my weekends visiting prisons to talk to inmates about their legal rights. I'm basically the opposite of exciting. Good. I've had enough excitement to last a lifetime." He stood, still holding my hand, close enough that I could see the changes in him. The softness around his eyes that hadn't been there before. The genuine warmth in his smile. The way he held himself. Not like a predator, but like a man who'd stopped running from his own humanity. "I love you," he said simply. "I've loved you since you slid that napkin across the bar and saved my life. And I'll love you if we try this and it fails. I'll love you if you decide tomorrow that this was a mistake. I'll love you through whatever comes next, fever and all. That's the illness talking. The fever that makes people sick. Maybe. Or maybe it's just love. Real, complicated, probably going to fuck up sometimes love." He pulled me closer. "Either way, I'm willing to risk it if you are." I kissed him then, in the middle of the prison reform office, surrounded by people fighting for justice and second chances. It wasn't the desperate kisses from before, born of danger and darkness and the certainty that one of us might die. This was softer, hopeful. The kiss of two people who'd survived the fire and were ready to build something in the ashes. When we broke apart, his colleagues were studiously pretending not to watch. I laughed, the sound foreign and genuine. "So what now?" "Yes. Now we start boring. I finish my workday. Another 3 hours of reviewing legal briefs. Then we get dinner at a mediocre Thai place around the corner. We talk about normal things, your cafe, my work, whether the Cubs will ever win again. We go back to my terrible apartment, and I'll make you terrible coffee because I never learned to make it properly. And we figure out if we can be normal together." That sounds perfect. It sounds mundane. Same thing. I touched his face, feeling the reality of him under my fingers. The wolf and the ghost learning to be ordinary. What could be more revolutionary than that? He laughed, the sound rich and unguarded. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. We had dinner at the mediocre Thai place. Talked about everything and nothing. Laughed at bad jokes and shared comfortable silences. Walked back to his apartment hand in hand. Two people who'd been through hell choosing to walk towards something lighter. And that night, in his small apartment with terrible plumbing, drinking coffee that was indeed terrible, we started something new. Not a fairy tale. Not a redemption arc where the monster became a prince and the ghost became a princess. Just two damaged people choosing each other. Choosing transparency over secrets. Choosing to build something honest and real and probably messy. Choosing love, fever and all. The ghost had stopped haunting. The wolf had stopped hunting. And together they learned to simply live. End.